looks like I'm streaming and such, I think. Mostly, maybe. Okay, it is working. Alright, sorry for that. Whatever it is, the beginning. So this whole video might be just horrible because I'm still getting over my nicotine withdrawal thing. I was pretty good Saturday. I was really feeling like, this is pretty easy. Yeah, it's a couple of bad days and that's okay. And then got bad again on yesterday and then today. It's just, today's been really crappy. Just constantly distracted. And I can't think and I can't see. And it just sucks. But anyway, so I figured I'll try to make a video. I tried to make one all day and I just couldn't get it. Couldn't hit the button. Just couldn't face the prospect of trying to be literate and something like that. Because I just don't have any. There's just no clear space in my brain. It's just constantly saying, I want a cigarette, I want a cigarette, I want a cigarette. It just keeps waiting for. There's something essential and it's just missing. It's just sitting there saying, I'm missing, it's missing, it's missing. It's probably a good analogy for it for something, but can't think of it because I can't think. So I can't tell you what the analogy would be, but anyway, so it's just very difficult time for me. Yeah. So Hooke's law. So it is interesting. Okay, now Hooke lived, obviously, I mean, some people know this, before Newton. So he was the king of science before Newton showed up big time with his Principia. So he kind of dethroned Hooke as the guy, the Superman of science, in kind of a big way. And they didn't like each other. Hooke was always accusing Newton of stealing this and that. Like Hooke said, I thought of it first. So the inverse square law, the idea that a theory of gravity would have to acknowledge the fact that this functions based on the inverse square law, that whatever's causing the gravity is spreading in two dimensions. Yeah, the nothing is spreading in two dimensions, which is just kind of funny because it's the same thing photons are doing, in reverse, so to speak. And so it's sort of a real giveaway that this is about something, where one could argue particles and rays would have something to do with it, and not much else. Anyway, so I haven't done extensive research on Hooke. I'd be interested to see what his theory of gravity actually was that competed, because they all said something. They all tried to say something on the subject in terms of speculating regarding causes, so like Descartes had a whole ether theory, swirling stuff. Unfortunately, Descartes was right about so much, but he got that one way wrong. Anyway, this isn't, Hooke's law isn't much of an observation. It's just a conservation observation, in a sense, and just this idea that elastic objects, they absorb energy, and they absorb it by the obvious rules of twice the velocity is twice the force, as Newton stated in the second law, right underneath it. It's not much more complicated than that. So the simple idea that springs are measuring devices, they had already known that for a long time. You could weigh something, and 2 pounds weighed, compress the spring twice as much. 4 pounds would be twice that amount. So it was all, you could, write a scale and measure exactly on the scale. You had certain expectations, 1, 2, 3, and it was proportional and correct and all that kind of stuff, quite linear. So I don't know exactly. So it's not much of a law, is all I'm saying. It's just an observation, frankly, that's pretty easy to make, especially when scales are doing it for you and showing you the law working. So that is the interesting thing, because arguments in gravity, arguments in different places, you can't get all of these things to fit. But Hooke's law for springs basically is telling you that, twice the distance, that is twice the compression or expansion of the spring, will produce twice the velocity. And we already know from weighing things that it will be caused by twice the weight. So you have all those twos there, and yet, 100 years later, they were going to claim that this law doesn't apply, even though it certainly does. It certainly was a law. It always works. And somehow there's 4 times the energy somehow locked in this mechanism. So again, it's this kind of silly statement where, you could say that how could it be possible that you could have, 2 objects you're going to put on a scale, you double the weight on the scale, and that somehow one of the objects only puts 1 unit of energy, and when you put the other one on, that's 3 units of energy. You did exactly the same action, same thing. How could one of them transform it from 1 unit of energy, which it was, now twice as compressed, which they are going to claim is 4 times the energy? So how does the same action, the same work, the same mass, the same gravitational force, how does all that sameness create this extra? How do you have which one? I put this one on first, then this one has 3 units of energy. If I put this one on first, then this one has 3 units of energy. It doesn't make any sense. And again, I'm arguing not with idiots, right? I mean, these videos are to people who care about science, interested in the puzzles that it creates, and the mysteries of it, and the complexity of it, even the mathematics of it, the symmetry of it, all of these things they're supposed to admire and love and be interested in. And they've never noticed that, oh yeah, it is twice the velocity, it is twice the distance, it is twice the weight. That about covers it. How can there be a 4 of something in there? How can twice the weight be 4 times the weight? Can't happen. Doesn't make any sense. Twice the compression is, as Newton stated, you're twice the force. Twice the force is twice the motion. 3 times the force, 3 times the motion. What other? So I'm just saying, it's just so fundamental physics law, well established. Now it's not nearly as established as Archimedes' law of the lever, but it's well established. And here we are having this conversation, this argument, and these people are saying the law of the lever doesn't work. So you have a 1 mass and a 2 mass. If you put a 2 mass, if you put a 1 mass in with 1.4, okay, the velocity, okay, 2 units of distance, their expectation is that you will actually produce a 2 mass going 1v, all right, and make 33% more momentum. So you can make free mv. Or lose the mv just as well. I can make this a 4 mass and a 1 mass out for 4 units of distance, and then I can be creating and losing even larger amounts of momentum. And so this is a thousands of year old mechanism of balance. It showed you something. It showed you that when it's in balance, a 1 mass going 4 units of velocity is the same as a 4 mass going 1 unit of velocity, and that those 2 things require the same work. And it showed you that for thousands of years. Now you threw all that away. 2,000 years worth of observational physics that actually worked, made perfectly good sense, there was a perfect symmetry to it. Again, this makes sense, Hooke's law. This makes sense, the law of the lever. Why would you mess with it? Why would you break something that works for some notion of some living, forcey thing, made out of this vapor, just words? You don't have any evidence of it, no experimental evidence. It's just crap, frankly. And I have to spend all this time making all these videos arguing what is crap. So I mean, you have to concede the kinetic energy theory, 1/2 mv squared, okay, does attack both of these concepts. You can't believe in Hooke's law and believe in this because it's a magical transformation. They just poof the extra energy out of it and nowhere. So I did do a Google search, and the AI response, and it basically says, no, it's not twice the velocity. And then if you read a couple paragraphs down, it says, yes, the maximum velocity will be twice as much. I mean, it's conceding the argument that there's nothing else happening. Twice the distance, twice the compression of the spring, twice the velocity produced. Fact. And I have to make these arguments for years. 10 years? Just to an intelligent audience, an audience interested in science. And they'll just, what are you doing? How are you basically rationalizing your position? Are you just saying out of a groupthink kind of argument? Well, that's what they say. They say so. I can't actually think about what they're saying and disagree with it. But this is what they're saying. This is Hooke's law up here. And this is the law of the lever, obviously, down here. But I mean, they're saying this. I mean, I played the, Steve Mould video. This is their contention. Okay, that levers fundamentally don't work. That they don't conserve momentum because it's only if they can't do both. You can't change the mass and put the energy in it, okay, and conserve both momentum and kinetic energy. It's not possible. And they won't even admit that. It's mathematically not possible. That's what the squared function does. The quadratic squaring of the velocity means anytime you change the mass, you're going to change, and conserve the momentum, you're going to end up with wacky kinetic energy numbers. All right, let's see. So this, whatever this is, Hooke's law shows nothing is free or exponential. 2 units of energy in, 2 units of velocity out. Yes, exactly. So why do I have to make this argument? Hooke came long before Leibniz, so we're talking at least 50 years. A difference in their ages, I'd say something like that anyway. Might be, probably about 50. So Hooke was at his prime, when Leibniz was a kid, I guess, something like that. But regardless, so they already knew they had to make this new living force compatible with Hooke's law and the law of the lever. Now, I would argue that all of the Newtonian, that is, everyone just about, so 99% of all scientists did not accept Leibniz's living force. It was resoundingly defeated. And not even mentioned, it was so resoundingly defeated. And then it was brought up again in France, where they wanted a real answer, because there was a bit of a controversy, so they wanted to clarify this. And then the Chardonnay got into it with the silly denting clay experiment. But all of these arguments were already there. And you're saying, there's no rational way you can jump over the simple truth that 1/2 mv squared destroys the law of the lever. I mean, you can't believe the law of the lever and believe in 1/2 mv squared. And you can't believe in Hooke's law and believe in 1/2 mv squared. You just can't do it. I mean, it's 2 units of velocity, 2 units of distance, 2 units of weight. What else is there? And that's every measurement possible. There's no other thing to measure. So you're done. Okay, you can't say 4 units, 2 units of weight is 4 units of weight. You can't say 2 pounds weighs 4 pounds. You can't do that. I think you know you can't do that. And that's what you're doing. And it's wrong. All right, so maybe I'll read some of what the web page produced. Oh, God, I want a cigarette. Yeah. I want nicotine. But I know I can't do it. Sorry. Really is killing me. Anyway, I gotta find the stupid What the fuck? Where's the page? See, I can't think. I can't do it. I just can't. If there's any pressure on my brain, it just will not function. Alright, that's not the page. I know I have it here somewhere because I was reading it before. Okay, this might be it. No, that's some kind of Google search console crap. Ah, here it is. Alright, so I asked the question, does Hooke's law mean that twice the stretch is twice the velocity? And so it said no as the answer, which is just funny, right? Okay, it says, so it blows smoke, which is, this part of AI is really annoying. That is an excellent and insightful question that delves into the very heart of classical mechanics. So that's what they keep calling this again. They keep calling Leibniz's physics, which annihilated Newton's physics, which annihilated Archimedes' physics, which annihilated Hooke's physics, and they keep calling that classical. And it's just so evil to do that, because obviously this is not Descartes' physics, Galileo's physics, and Newton's physics. Okay, and the fundamental principle governing elastic motion. The short answer is no. Hooke's law does not directly state, okay, I didn't ask if it states, that twice the stretch results in twice the velocity. Yes, it does actually state that. And that is exactly what it happens. And it's just lying by saying that's not what it states, but that's exactly what it states. So it's really funny. Anyway, the relationship between stretch and velocity is far more intricate and involves the principle of energy conservation and harmonic oscillations. Yeah, some more crap that's totally against any theory that it's not twice the velocity. You can't have a harmonic oscillator, okay, that has a different amount of velocity on each side, which is a fascinating area of physics to explore in detail. La-di-da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, so there's so much of this bullshit, I won't read all of it, but I mean, it just goes on and on with this bullshit, and then it finally goes to the point where it says, well, yes, actually it does go twice as fast. To fully understand why this is the case, we must first establish precisely what Hooke's law actually describes, and then examine the dynamics of how a stretched object behaves when released. The distinction you're asking about and highlights the difference between static force, displacement relationships, and dynamic motion. So there's no difference. There's no such thing as static force in a sense. Obviously, when things aren't moving, it's not applying any force, it's not using any force, it's not, so that's just kind of bullshit. All right, understanding Hooke's law of force, not velocity. Yeah, Hooke's law is fundamentally a principle about force and displacement. So they just want to try to ignore the fact that it's exactly what it does is create velocity. Just like the law of the lever, it creates velocities. It creates momentums. That's what it's converting. The lever works because it converts momentum. It takes big V, little m, and converts it into big M, little v. And that's why it works. That's why there's an advantage. Yeah, it's just so stupid. Oh, all right. Let's see. It describes linear relationship. Okay, and then it says idealistic limits. So obviously it has a limit. Yes. All right. So it just goes into the constant stuff, and we already know that the constant just means the stiffness of the spring, but doesn't change the proportionality. So it's always the same proportions. And all you're saying is whether a half inch is a Newton or a 3/4 of an inch is a Newton or an inch is a Newton. You're just trying to figure out how much distance is a Newton. But anyway, and so it does say, so what does twice the stretch actually mean? Okay, this is the question. To summarize the implications of doubling the stretch, twice the initial force, so that's what it is. So the initial push the spring provides is doubled. Okay, 4 times the stored energy. So obviously that's just the part they make up. The system holds 4 times as much potential energy. How do we know that? We don't. Is there any evidence of that? No. Did you weigh that? No. Did you weigh that 4 times the energy? Did you get 4 times the weight? See, what they're basically arguing is that I could put two 2 pounds of force into one spring, and somehow I'm going to put 4 pounds of force into another one, and somehow I could hit it with 4 pounds of force, and I can't do that. So it's just so ridiculous. And here it says, twice the maximum velocity. The mass will move twice as fast when it passes the center point of the oscillation. So obviously that's the only part. When anyone talks about how fast the spring can make something move, they're talking about the peak velocity, not the middle velocity, not the slowest velocity, not the starting velocity, not the 3 days ago velocity. And then twice the amplitude. The object will travel back and forth over a distance that is twice as large. So clearly it's twice the distance, twice the velocity, twice the weight. How can that be 4 of anything? It's just not possible, and it's just evil. I mean, I don't even understand how, like I said, how can these people, it's so hard to figure out how none of you people interested in physics, it just never occurred to you to, when people are telling you what Hooke's law does, that, well, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, it can't weigh twice and weigh 4. I can't make something weigh 2 pounds and 4 pounds. Can't do that. So it does confound my understanding to figure out how I could be the only person who would see this glaring defect in the physics. I mean, I saw it just because of the gravity argument. I mean, it's clear gravity's a time-dependent force. I mean, it's quite clear. It's 4 times the distance you're falling, but you're only in it 2 units of time. And just like wind, just like water, just like a sandblaster, just like suntan, just like every other possible constant force you can imagine, just like every single one of those other constant forces, you're getting it in units of time, not distance. Distance isn't going to matter. The only thing that's going to matter is how long were you in the force. That'll tell you how many bits of force hit you, how much force you collected. You have a rate of collection based on your mass. It's like saying you have a size of your boat. You have a size of your sail. You can only collect so much wind with that size sail. And you're going to collect it in units of time. It's how long was your sail collecting. The sun, solar panel, it's the size of your solar panel. That's all that matters. The size of your solar panel. How long was it in the sun? There's no distance involved. To moving it around, putting it in a car, driving it across the country, it doesn't matter. If I could do all that, it's not going to change anything. It's a speed of light force. Me going 60 miles an hour, I'm not going to outrun any of the force, so there's no chance I can change how much solar energy I'm going to collect. And it's all going to be about how much time was the panel in the sun. And I have to say all this stuff over and over again, like, to the intelligent portion of humanity. You're not supposed to be the morons. Now, obviously, some of you people are morons because you've come from whatever, troll channels, and stuff. But I mean, generally speaking, I don't think you'd click on videos about science, some subject involving science and flat earth debunking or whatever it was that got you here, without having some sort of passion for science. And how do you get over this? How do you get over these arguments before we've even done an experiment? It's already, the physics is impossible. Something can't weigh 2 pounds and 4 pounds. I mean, it's an impossible physics. Yes, it is impossible physics. All right, let's see. Yeah, quitting nicotine is difficult. Sorry you're going through that. Yes, it really is. Like I said, I was really, maybe that's the part of it, right? Is you just get so confident. Like I said, Saturday really wasn't a bad day. And, and then, like I said, Sunday and Monday, I just haven't been here. I don't even know what day it is. It's still Monday. I don't know what day it is. It feels like the last 2 days were very long days. And it snowed here, too, which was a nice distraction because, I was out shoveling snow, trying to make 50 cents. And, yeah, today was just not good, and I really thought it would be better than this. And I knew I couldn't cheat, so the first day I did cheat a little bit. I took one little hit of, nicotine, one little, and that was it. And I said, okay, you can't do that because that's just going to fuck your brain, so you can't do that. Don't do that. You won't win. I had to convince myself that is not a winning strategy. But it did work. It's just irritating me that it did seem to work because today was terrible, and I didn't cheat at all. Oh, whatever. I'm just griping. It's really not that bad. I mean, I'm not, convulsions or something. It's not all that bad. It's just, I hate losing all this time because I can't write, I can't think, I can't do any of the stuff I'm used to doing every day. I can't even, I'd clean up or something, but you drop stuff, you're just not, you're not very coordinated either. You just lost everything. All this touchy-feelness to your life is gone. Let's see, they think giving an object going 3v, covering 9 distances, 9 times the energy. Yeah, well, it's just this idea that you can understand that something's being pushed, it's gaining velocity. That velocity is for free, so you don't need any force to have that velocity. So the first second in gravity, you're going 9.8. Well, yeah, so that velocity, now it's going for free. You're getting free distance. It doesn't have to push you for you to do that next bit of distance because you're already going that velocity. And all you're getting is the same thing you got the first time, which is the 4.9 and the 9.8. I mean, it's just so obvious. I mean, I've drawn that so many times I'd almost feel embarrassed to have to draw it again, right? And you're just saying it's so unpersuasive. People aren't persuaded by any of these arguments. You're saying, how can you not be persuaded by these arguments? I mean, the whole gravitational well thing. I got a gravitational body and I'm going to travel. And you really think this distance is always the same amount of push this way? Well, it's obviously not the same amount of push. The faster I go, the less I get pushed. The faster I go from point A to point B, the less I move towards this thing. I mean, it's obvious. It's such an ABC of physics. And it's screaming at you, well, then it can't be a distant force. It's got to be a time-dependent force. And once you establish its time dependency, then all you have to do is go 4 times the distance, twice the time. 9 times the distance, 3 times the time. 16 times the distance, 4 times the time. Come on. 25 times the distance, 5 times the time. I mean, it's so obvious. All right, anyway, the proportion of a spring stretching when a 2 kilogram mass is applied is 2 units of distance, or a 1-to-1 proportion, not 2-to-4 proportion, or 3-to-9 proportion. Yeah, depending on the spring's constant. One of those physicist guys did the experiment, and what they waste their time doing is calculating the what do they call it, the maximum something, but they put a bunch of points on a chart and they make a straight line and then say something about the straight line, and I can't remember what they call that, but I'm like, why would they even mathematically bother with that? All you're saying is that once you know Hooke's law, you're saying that if you measure the distance of any change, it's going to be the same change each time, the same proportion of change. But the weird thing is when they actually physically did the experiment, the first unit was 2.2, and then all the rest averaged 1.6. And you're just saying, man, that's a huge difference, right? I mean, that's way off. 2.2 and 1.6. I mean, that's a big failure to get the first unit of. So you could almost argue that springs work in the middle range. When you just start to push them, they kind of fail. And when you over push them, they fail. And they only work in that middle range do you get all those 1.6s. So it is a catch of Hooke's law. is that, well, springs in general, is that it's kind of hard to do that initial pressure bit, apparently, because like I said, when you see the actual experiment, the first unit's way off, and then all the rest of them are 1.5 or 1.6, the ratio. Well, anyway, so, I mean, it just screams. Hooke's law is really elasticity. It's the law of elasticity. And what it demonstrates is momentum is always conserved. And so that should be like a glaring fact, that it's just another confirmation that the one that really matters, you know, if you're going to do this push to shove thing, the thing you always can depend on is the conservation of momentum. I mean, that should be a concession they're willing to make, and they're not, you know, they just won't make that concession. But that's what the glaring evidence is. So annoying. Alright, so I guess I'll move on to something else. There is a wacky video I could play demonstrating the threat of this whole AI thing, and you know, it's so brilliant, does so much really good stuff can be done, but I can't remember how, I'm a little surprised how many characters are out there trying to do like evil. You know, but again, I shouldn't be surprised, right? Because there is so much evil in the world. It's just an evil place, the world. So somebody had mentioned a comment about this motion theory thing. Yeah, I haven't watched that video. Anyway, let me bring up this video. Maybe I'll just do it in Firefox. Save myself some brain work. Yeah, there it is. So it's this thing called motion theory. All right. Now, it's just some kind of crappy theory in the sense that it just makes this ambiguous statement that motion, the universe runs on motion, and it's not saying anything. And I don't know who's doing this exactly, but he's made the channel. I guess that's what I wish I still had here. Well, we'll go to the channel. He's got a video by like every scientist ever recorded in the history of physics, and they've created an AI script that connects all these physicists to this silly motion theory thing that no one's ever heard of. And so it's just like pretending all these scientists had some opinion on this stupid theory. So can you see this page? Yeah, you can see it. So it has like everyone is mentioned. I mean, Einstein, Wheeler, you know, it's like everybody is here. And Weisskopf, I don't remember him. Anyway, well, I'm just saying, you can see all of these names, and just goes on and on. It goes all the way into the 1700s, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's just bizarrely scary. And so it's written into this whole narrative of the Leibniz story. And so he's, you know, they've got this whole like fake narrative that Leibniz was a motionist or something, you know, as if it was relevant to his period of time, like he, you know, actually had some relevant comment on this nonsense. And then it also is blending his wooey monads and solitons into this. And it's all done with the pretty smart AI, so it's all, you know, some of it's very accurate. But some of it, and it's those key sentences that you have to extract, just like with the AI, you know, telling me that, you know, it's not twice the velocity when, you know, later it's going to have a key sentence where it's going to concede, well, yes, it is twice the maximum velocity. You know, like it thought I was concerned about some other velocity. Yeah, too ridiculous. So anyway, I guess we play some of this. What is wrong with this? The play button isn't even in the right place. What the fuck is going on with this computer? What the hell is this null? I don't get it. So let's see how much audio we're going to have here. Probably too much.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into, well, a truly colossal figure from history, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz.
Yeah, colossal is the right word, not just a name you might vaguely remember.
So even weirder, so they end up having this script they wrote, and it has two people talking. So these are two completely fake people having a fake conversation about a bunch of fake physics. And it's, you know, this is a little scary because it's, you know, it all sounds like a real thing. Like these are real people with real opinions talking about Leibniz, and it's not. And it's spooky bad. I don't know what this 360 means, so that's a little, I don't know.
Remember from math class.
Definitely not. Philosopher, mathematician, diplomat. I mean, his ideas were so far ahead, it feels like we're only...
So his ideas were far ahead. It's a religious kook who thought it was the best of all possible worlds. You know, right in the middle of the plague, he said things like that. Well, God couldn't have done any better because God did it this way. So it couldn't be better because God says this is the best you could be. So it's the best of all possible worlds because God says so. Or something like, I mean, it's just so circular and stupid. But, I mean, that's really, you know, it's just, oh, I mean, it's disgusting that this propaganda engine is turning Leibniz into some hero of science when he was, you know, he was the Inquisition. He would have put Galileo in jail. He tried to put Newton in jail.
Now really catching up.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating, beneath all that genius, all the different fields he worked in, there was this deep, driving obsession.
Which was?
Force activity.
To steal everyone else's shit and repackage it.
What he specifically called vis viva, or living force.
Okay.
He didn't see a static universe, you know, just
Whatever. So nobody sees a static universe. The question is whether there's some kind of magical thing. And again, Descartes made it so clear that there's no magic. They all talk about, even Leibniz talks about it, you know, a little bit of the clockwork thing. And, you know, I don't know why Newton thought you need to wind the clock now and then. So I'm not exactly sure what bothered him, where he thought that God needed to rewind the clock now and then. But it all looks conservational. So in spite of Newton's kind of mushy statement on that subject, all the rest were pretty loud on that, you know, making that assertion, especially Descartes about, you know, the same energy now, same energy 10,000 years ago, same energy 10 million years ago. It's all the same crap moving about. Same horses, different riders. I don't know. It's some kind of bullshit like that. All right, where was I? Hitting the button.
matter sitting there. He saw it as a hierarchy of dynamic systems, all in constant internal motion, constant activity.
So motion wasn't just what things do. For him, it was closer to what things are.
Well, of course. I mean, I'm just saying, it's essential to physics. Wow, how do you have physics without motion? Is there any physics to talk about? In systems where nothing moves, is there anything to talk about? Because there can't possibly be any physical functions. Nothing can have any properties. Nothing can do anything. There's no expression of any physics. You can't have expression of physics if there isn't motion. Something has to be moving, and we know that there's little tiny bits, electrons and protons now. So this isn't even a complicated subject.
Exactly. Motion as the root of being itself. It's a radical idea.
Being itself. Again, this pen is being. Is this being the same way I'm being? No, I don't think so. Don't think so. I don't think it's going to go through nicotine withdrawal. No problem.
Especially for his time.
Right. So our mission today in this deep dive is to explore how these, frankly, radical 17th century insights seem to, well, almost perfectly anticipate a modern framework.
So again, that's the scary part, that this mush and this idea that there's a modern framework that is any kind of frame, just violate every single argument you've previously made, make all of your laws look ridiculous because you don't think they're laws, ignore the fact that right under the second law, Newton says twice the force, twice the motion, 3 times the force, 3 times the motion. Yeah, just ignore that. I mean, it's amazingly bad science. I can't believe I have to make these videos. It's just so, this is such bad science, and for all these people to defend this bad science, this garbage.
We're calling, for our purposes here, motion theory.
Motion theory. Let's define that quickly for everyone. Think of it as a contemporary lens, suggesting reality operates through structured, synchronized motion.
Oh, whatever this, right? Structured, synchronized motion. What is, that's just jargon, right? As opposed to unstructured, unsynchronized wacky ball.
Right, not just static particles hitting each other, but...
Oh, so what did that have to do with static particles? And how does a static thing hit each other? So again, they can't get, none of, this is what makes it look so AI, is it doesn't even understand that it can't talk about static things hitting each other. That doesn't make any sense.
Dynamic loops, emergent...
Dynamic loops? What the fuck would a dynamic loop exactly be? What's a dynamic loop? Amazing shit.
Patterns, sync, it applies across physics, maybe even consciousness.
So we're looking at Leibniz, this philosopher of living motion, and asking how
Yes, living motion.
he almost cracked the code 300 years too early using this motion theory lens.
That's...
Right, and so there was some code to be cracked that they've cracked now, that we can somehow get this motion theory thing that somehow explains nothing. Just amazing. I mean, there's no, it doesn't explain anything. It doesn't, they can't draw you. That's why they're showing you Leibniz, because they can't draw a picture of whatever this motion theory is.
the plan, and hopefully by the end you'll see how these older philosophical ideas aren't just historical curiosities.
They're surprisingly relevant, right? Yeah.
Surprisingly scary that people are this frickin' religious. Scientists are this religious.
Offering insights into how the universe, maybe even our own minds, actually work.
Let's get into it. Where should we start? Maybe with vis viva itself.
Makes sense. The living force. This was his direct challenge to the dominant thinking of the time, wasn't it? Specifically Newton.
Isaac Newton had his
So it was specifically Descartes, okay, where Leibniz started. So he despised Descartes' theory. So it's just so far off. Let's see what this guy says here. Into friction. What's this? Let's see. That it loses 9 times the energy to friction. Yeah, well, the fact they don't understand that friction obviously isn't constant with velocity. Velocity changes friction. Velocity changes exposure. Anyway, the proportion of the spring stretching when a 2 kilogram mass is... Yeah, we did that part, right? Yeah, okay. All right, Leibniz is not the right answer. Newton is. Just as Tesla is not the right answer, Edison is. I don't think I'd compare Tesla to Edison, but whatever. I mean, you know, Tesla was a theory. He was more theory. Edison was just make it work. See if I can make one. You know, but theory was... I mean, there was some theory for the talking machine and then the movie camera. He had to have some theory, some idea of, okay, I can take a static image and I can move the static image and I can fool the senses into thinking it's a continuous image. So yeah, there's some theory. But they're really, playing a different game, frankly. Tesla had something about this whole resonant frequency stuff. He had a couple of good insights, but yeah, he didn't invent. They just went way too far, saying he invented AC current and he invented the AC motor. He invented one version. I mean, it's just so silly. They just always go way too far. All right, Edison is, if someone sings the praises of Niels Bohr, then... it let me know that their reasoning is not sound. Then it lets me know their reasoning is not sound. Okay. Well, just about everything Bohr did was, he just made he created this stupid orbiting frickin' rules. He decided there's no electrons. I mean, in spite of Rutherford saying there's electrons in the nucleus, Bohr took them out. Okay. So the guy who invented the thing or found the thing, he's full of shit, and we let Bohr interpret his good vision and turn it into, turn the atom into a pile of nonsense that needs a strong force to hold it together, a magical gluon-y force. So yeah, Bohr was a real disaster. It's too bad Einstein didn't accidentally stab him with a butter knife. But anyway. And then too bad somebody didn't accidentally stab Einstein with a butter knife. Because, he was such a hypocrite. Spooky action. And then he comes up with a gravity theory that's nothing but spooky action. Well, the nothing tells the something where it's going and what it's going to do. Nothings do that. No, nothings don't do that.
Concept of quantity of motion, mass times velocity, mass seems simple, mechanical.
Can you hear this adequately? I mean, is this a good enough volume for you people?
Leibniz comes along and says, what?
Soon we'll be telling the whole stadium how Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance to save people hundreds.
Yeah, fuck you.
What?
He proposes something different. Vis viva, mv faster, mass times velocity squared.
Which is just incredibly close to our modern formula for kinetic energy.
Right. So they really think that's the verification, is how close it is to the modern theory, when the modern theory just has to do with the units they're using, so that's why the 1/2 is there. But otherwise they wouldn't need the 1/2. But it's just, there's nothing to it. There's no explanation for how there's any evidence or anything confirmed it, and and how it doesn't have to match the modern one, because Leibniz is the modern theory. There was no transition through reason to get to the modern theory. They just went straight from Leibniz directly to stupid and just stayed there. They took a stupid, unproven theory and just said, we accept it. They didn't prove it. They didn't demonstrate it. They didn't do any math. They didn't do anything complicated. They didn't do anything. Just horseshit. So anyway, okay, continuing.
He was right there.
He was. But the key thing, and this is crucial for understanding Leibniz, is that for him, vis viva wasn't just a better equation.
It was more.
Much more.
So it wasn't a better equation. It wasn't an equation. He just squared the velocity, for fuck's sake. He put a 2 above the v. All right, this wasn't some equation. This was some concept that somehow velocity is so much more important than mass. And so everybody else saw it as a proportion between your mass and your velocity. That equaled what you would do when you hit something. If I made you heavy and you were going slow, you could knock a door over. If I made you really light and you were going fast, you could knock the door over, because you had this quantity of motion, this total capacity. So going fast was like getting heavy. They worked proportionally to each other. I could do either one and improve my odds. I could make the thing heavier by twice, or I can make it go twice as fast, and I'd get the same positive impact in terms of doing twice the work. And that works so well. Again, it works so well. Hooke's law, the law of the lever, these things made perfect sense out of reality. It was all conservational. It made perfect sense. Why would you break it? And the reason why you would break it is if you were clueless and didn't even know it existed. And Leibniz was pretty clueless. He actually, in his middle-aged years, was still thinking that it was possible that you could hit a giant boulder and a pea with the same force, and they'd leave at the same velocity.
It was fundamental, metaphysical. It represented...
And metaphysical is a key word here, so at least there's a bit of honesty. That's another word for religion, okay? Metaphysical just means religion. God bothering.
Motion as vitality, force as a sense, existence as this dynamic expression.
Okay,
Right, dynamic vitality. It's like taking Geritol.
so not just how much motion, but the inherent aliveness or potential.
See the aliveness. Yeah, the aliveness of motion. It's so disgusting. I mean, that this is science. It's come to this.
Within that motion.
Precisely. It's about the life in the motion.
And that connects directly to motion theory.
It really does.
The life in the motion. So yes, everything's got life in its motion. So the grass is bad, the trees are the leaves, and it's all alive, and except for the boulder rolling down the cliff. But anyway, it's just so disgusting. Yeah.
In motion theory terms, you could translate vis viva as something like sync tension locked into a motion loop.
Unpack that.
Okay, sync tension locked into a motion loop. So again, see how they're pushing Leibniz into this motion theory crap.
That sync tension, motion loop.
Okay, so sync tension is like, imagine the potential energy in a compressed spring or the focused energy in a wave about to break. There's an internal commitment.
The focused energy in a wave about to break. There's no focused wave energy.
To resolve, to move in a certain way.
Right, and the motion loop.
That's just a self-sustaining pattern or system, a cycle. So vis viva in this view isn't just speed, it's about how deeply committed that motion is to resolving itself within a
Whatever. So the motion is committed to resolving itself. It's going to go to a healthcare professional. You don't get put on Prozac.
structure.
So it leads to a totally different question. Newton asks, how fast is it moving?
Yeah.
Leibniz, or maybe motion theory through Leibniz, asks, what is this motion trying to do?
Exactly.
So it just, ew. I just can't believe this would appeal to science types. Ew.
That question is
This is like, a heart surgeon calling himself a brain surgeon. Well, hearts feel.
fundamental, and it leads us naturally to maybe his most famous and perhaps most puzzling idea, monads.
Monads. Indivisible, non-spatial points of force. This sounds pretty out there. Why did he even need such a concept?
Well, he needed a basic unit of reality that wasn't just passive matter like Descartes had suggested. He needed something inherently active.
Okay.
So I don't know if that acronym actually consisted with I don't see how it ended with an F, monad. I don't think that ends with an F. But anyway, it's about solitons, really. So it's about the fact that he thought all motion was an expression of actual consciousness in some rudimentary form.
So what are their key features?
Right, so each monad has its own internal activity, its own motion. It somehow reflects the entire universe from its own perspective.
Whole universe. Internally.
Internally, yes. And here's the kicker.
So whatever that could mean to anybody else, I don't think Leibniz knew much about the whole universe. So I don't know whether those words would even be in Leibniz's own words. So that's stretching, I think.
They don't physically interact. They don't bump into each other.
Wait, how does anything happen then? How do they coordinate?
Through what he called pre-established harmony, they synchronize.
Okay, pre-established harmony. We'll definitely need to come back to that one. But this idea of isolated units coordinating,
Yeah.
that does sound relevant.
Incredibly relevant to motion theory. It's trying to solve that exact problem. How can you have a universe made of distinct units that...
Spooky action. Our spooky action is the solution to spooky action. Maybe they can make a bent spooky action tablecloth and use spooky action to make spooky action. Oh, it's just so bad.
still act as a coherent whole.
So how does motion theory translate a monad?
It sees a monad as essentially a closed-loop motion system. It has internal activity,
Right.
capable of what we'd call recursive internal resolution. Like it,
Okay, so, all of this resolution stuff. So again, all of this, like it's somehow, a rock getting hit by some wind blowing, tilting, rolling down a mountain is somehow seeking. You know, it's just disgusting.
It's constantly processing its own state, a feedback loop inside itself.
Okay.
And crucially, it has sync resonance with other systems. It can vibrate, metaphorically speaking, in harmony with others.
So they don't collide, they phase lock, like tuning forks.
Exactly like tuning forks, they align their internal rhythms through some kind of universal rhythm.
So all this has got to just appeal to religious nuts, right? I mean, there can't be any value to this from a scientist's point of view. I mean, this isn't Darwin's kind of science, clearly. Yuck.
Rhythm or field. It anticipates concepts like feedback loops, phase entrainment, emergence, all without direct contact.
That's quite a leap for the 17th century. Now, what about this perception he attributed to monads? You said it wasn't like seeing or thinking.
Michael's big gift sale is here. Get up to 50% off thousands of last-minute gifts. Save big on art supplies, kid.
No.
So I would appreciate if somebody, this has only got 139 views so far. So it was published August 5th. But, you saw how many videos this guy created. But if somebody can find the backstory, like who the fuck is doing this? Where did this AI-produced pile of shit come from? Because it's got all of this description text, too. I mean, there's an awful lot this guy produced. And it's just, I'm damn curious how much work he had to do this. Because if everybody's going to start doing this to the truth, you're not going to know. I mean, you're really going to have to physically get books out of the library again? I guess books might not be too fuck-upable. But it's like you won't be able to trust anything anybody says. Because every story could just be, somebody reciting this fake news, this fake science. Let's see, they are implying that motion has a deliberate intent. This shit is beyond insane. Well, it's like I said, the insane part is that it sounds like real people talking, and it's not. It's AI talking to itself. It's scary as fuck.
Not consciousness as we usually mean it. For Leibniz, a monad's...
For Leibniz. See, I mean, you could sort of... she's every time she says Leibniz, she changes the way she pronounces it. That was a pretty big... Whoops.
Perception was its way of resolving its own internal state in relation to the whole universe, its internal sync awareness.
So it's about how its internal rhythm reflects or aligns with the bigger picture.
Precisely. It's the motion unit's way of registering its place in the cosmic order through its own activity.
And motion theory sees this similarly.
Yes. Motion theory defines perception fundamentally as...
Ugh, I used to invent nicotine theory. How nicotine's running the universe. Look how it controlled me. It made me think I had a brain, and I really didn't have one after all.
the process by which a motion loop resolves its relationship to external sync layers. It's about that internal adjustment to the external context.
It's not just a passive reception of data, it's an active process of alignment.
Exactly.
Yeah, whatever. So we're actively trying to align ourselves with the rock falling down the hill or something, or the volcano that just erupted or something.
And this view has big implications. If perception is internal sync resolution,
Then
Bigly big. Yes, bigly big implications. Alright, opens up a lot of bad behavior. AI is pretty good. Well, again, that's the argument that it's really powerful tool, but it's obviously very dangerous if this kind of crap, people keep doing this stuff where they try to drag real historical events into this, into a fake narrative.
just as could be.
maybe recursive perception, a loop perceiving its own process of perception.
Thought.
Perhaps looped internal rhythm, stable patterns of that recursive activity, a retained sync pattern, a stable rhythm that the system can access again.
So in this view, the universe isn't dead matter with minds somehow plopped into it.
Not at all. For Leibniz, and in motion theory,
Leibniz.
it's made of motion-aware agents.
She did it again, Leibniz. So anyway, obviously, to deny the brain and its, yes, they didn't know there was, 100 billion neurons, but I mean, to deny the function. So it's like Leibniz actually thought our consciousness wasn't a brain function, I guess. Which is just so damn stupid. Even for back then. It was pretty obvious when people were dead, they're dead. I mean, it really, Ghost was a pretty, oh yeah, sure, you saw a ghost. Yeah, sure you did.
At every level, each resolving its sync state, a living universe.
Okay, let's tackle the weirdest idea, as you called it earlier, pre-established harmony.
Right, the idea that all these monads are perfectly synchronized without actually influencing each other directly.
I can see why people laughed. It sounds like magic, or just assuming the conclusion. How could that possibly work?
Well, contemporary physics and systems thinking actually give us ways to understand this now. Motion theory points out that systems don't necessarily need particle-to-particle causality if they resolve to shared motion fields.
Okay, unpack the shared motion fields idea.
Think of those two clocks on different walls.
So obviously, none of that makes any sense, but there always has to be something interpreting the motion. Something has to be some kind of contact through which you convey from one to the other. And you can't get away from that. So it doesn't matter whether you... I mean, it's almost having an argument about, the old tin can telephone. And the argument is, yeah, it's not that much different, but yeah, the idea is that it's always sound, it's always a vibration between these molecules, and all I have to do is cut the wire anywhere, and it's over. Or I stop it from being able to vibrate, and it's over.
They tick in perfect sync. Why? Not because one sends a signal to the other.
Right, you mentioned this. They phase lock to something else.
Exactly. Maybe Heine vibrations in the wall, maybe a shared environmental rhythm. They both listen to the same background beat, the same resonance source.
So they achieve coordination.
So that sounds like Tesla. So it's funny that somebody brought up Tesla. That sounds like Tesla. So that would be a Tesla kind of theory, that somehow if we both focus on the cement floor, like you're in your basement, when we both focus on it, that somehow we can use our connection to the floor, and then the floor will take care of the rest of connecting us to each other. We just have to make our connection to the floor.
Without direct interaction because they're both coupled to a larger field.
Precisely. So motion theory recasts Leibniz's pre-established harmony not as some divine setup, but as global sync fields modulating local loop resolution.
Meaning the monads or the loops stay local.
But their internal rhythm, their activity, resolves itself against this universal background motion, a kind of cosmic sync pressure.
That's a stunning reinterpretation.
Yes, stunning. It's stunningly bizarre, and you're just saying, who could have ever listened to this shit and thought this was, hey, you've got it? Who could think that? Right? I mean, who would buy this crap as a theory? It's just amazing. I mean, obviously nobody did at the time. It's only in hindsight that now people are somehow seeing this crap as something other than complete loony, batshit, crazy, fucktarded nonsense. Because that's what everybody thought at the time.
It makes Leibniz sound less mystical and more like a systems theorist way ahead of his time.
Over 300 years ahead, arguably. And this thinking extended to the mind-body problem, too.
Ah, yes, the classic split, especially after Descartes. Mind versus matter.
Leibniz rejected that sharp dualism. He argued mind and body weren't two different substances.
What were they then?
He saw them as two views of the same underlying motion, different perspectives on the same fundamental activity.
Which sounds, that sounds almost identical to the motion theory position.
It is remarkably similar. Motion theory claims matter and mind are not different things. They are nested resolutions of structured motion.
But we already know that the neurons are the only thing we're connected to the rest of the body with. And if you break the wire, your body isn't in any way connected to anything in your mind. So it's just more bullshit.
Resolutions, meaning different levels or types of organization of the same underlying stuff, which is motion.
Exactly. You can think of it like this. The body is the external loop rhythm. How we interact physically are biological cycles.
Okay.
The mind is the internal loop recursion, thought, self-awareness, that internal processing.
And reality.
Why would somebody be selling this old, tired, dumb religion? I mean, here you have a 300-year-old silly religion, and somebody's trying to repackage it. Why?
Reality is the field where both of these emerge and interact, so where Descartes fundamentally split the world.
Leibniz reunited it through motion, just like motion theory tries to do.
Yes, it's a unified view grounded in dynamics.
This also relates to how he viewed space and time, doesn't it? He clashed with Newton there too.
He did. Newton saw space and time as absolute containers, empty stage, ticking clock, independent of what's happening in them.
And Leibniz disagreed.
So again, the ticking clock is more Leibniz's theory than Newton's, but clearly Newton believed in three-dimensional space, so he believed there was a physical spatial universe, and that meant that there was no relativity in any way, except you can share a condition with something else. You can both have the same condition, and that's it. So it's a very limited Galilean-style relativity. It doesn't mean anything. And yeah, so clearly he thought things possessed motion. There wasn't, in any circumstance, it wasn't something always had the motion. And I'd argue that we could still test for that, because obviously if two things are going to hit each other and the thing that actually is moving is the smaller thing, it's going to matter in terms of the amount of energy that's in the system. Yeah, I mean, it just makes a huge difference whether there's an elephant and a flea. It matters on which one is actually moving, the impact of the event of the elephant hitting the flea. All right, continuing.
Strongly. He defined them relationally. Space, he said, is the order of coexistence. How things are arranged relative to each other now.
Okay.
And time is the order of succession. How events follow one another. They don't exist on their own.
They emerge from the relationships between things, between these motion systems.
That's the core idea. They emerge from the relationships between monads or loops.
So the motion theory translation would be?
Space could be seen as the sync gradient across motion systems. How aligned or misaligned different loops are creates a sense of distance or arrangement.
Like interference patterns creating structure.
Sort of, yes. And time becomes the rate of motion resolution relative to nested loops, how quickly these internal and external cycles are.
Yeah, the only thing in time is it consistent. It's either is or it isn't. Can you bend it? Can you warp it? Can you break it? You ain't saying nothing about that.
Are unfolding and resolving.
So time isn't a universal clock ticking away.
No, and space isn't an empty box. They are the structure produced by all this synchronized motion resolving itself. Leibniz said simply, time is a kind of order.
And motion theory says?
Time is ordered motion, nothing more. It's the rhythm of the loops.
Okay, one last major piece.
Ordered motion. I mean, it just doesn't make any... What does that even mean? Time is obviously the distance that a photon moves. Yeah.
Calculus. Leibniz co-invented it, obviously a massive achievement.
So they keep saying this now. So that's the new history, is that it was a co-invented. So the truth is Newton can prove he thought of it 10 years before Leibniz. And everybody's just ignoring that. Okay, that's an absolute proof. And the only question is Leibniz was in England during that 10 years. He did go to the Newton's book publisher, so he had contact with the guy who had all of Newton's unpublished works. So isn't that look a little bit suspicious? I mean, it's like the butler going to the gun store, on his lunch break. I mean, it's a pretty, you really do have to say, well, that doesn't look too good. He actually did go to the book publisher. Gee, and the book publisher had Newton's letters that had his calculus in it, and gee, you could have just read those letters, and so I'm just saying it looks pretty glaring, and yet they're going to rewrite the history. Obviously, yes, he got the idea of how Newton arranged his calculus, and Leibniz did it mv squared way. So Newton's calculus was time dependent, Leibniz's calculus is distance dependent. That's the funny part of this whole conversation. And obviously the moderns have accepted Leibniz's because they like the distance crap, they don't like the time crap.
But was it just math for him?
Not just math. You have to remember his underlying philosophy. For Leibniz, calculus was more than a tool. It was the language needed to describe change itself, to describe this dynamic universe he envisioned.
The language of
So you didn't need it. So that's just a lie to keep reselling over and over again. There's lots of tricks to being able to make approximations regarding the amount of the the volumes that are constantly changing. Okay, so there's lots of ways to do shortcuts. So you can do it geometrically, you can do it with protractors, you can do it with lots of different tools, mechanically, and then you have some of these mathematical shortcuts. But it's not all that. So this description of it being the thing that saved the world or something is just bullshit.
coming.
Exactly.
It's a
He gave us
trick.
derivatives, instantaneous change, a snapshot of how things are shifting right now.
And integrals cumulative change, the total effect over time.
Right. And motion theory looks
Which is the only part that matters, and actually that's the part that takes a lot of work. So this trick of calculus, if you're doing integrals, it's going to take you quite a while to solve a problem. So it's not all that. That's why they need supercomputers, is because the math isn't very yielding. So even with your calculus, there's no real shortcut.
at this and sees the first formal language of loop behavior. It's the mathematics of these dynamic resolving systems.
Can we translate those calculus concepts too?
We can try a derivative in motion theory terms, maybe a snapshot of sync tension shift at one moment, that instantaneous adjustment in the loop state.
Okay, the immediate push or pull.
Yeah. And an integral, that would be the total loop resolution.
So I don't even know how to explain some of this stuff, but some of this stuff just has to do with going above and below a median line. So you have an average, and there's stuff above it, and there's stuff below it. And you're saying that there's mathematical tricks where you can figure out what this line is by knowing the extremes of that line, because of kind of yin-yang principle, you know, that it always has to travel from one side to the other. It always has to do this thing, that symmetry. There's going to be a symmetrical amount of energy. The same energy it takes you to fall into gravity is the same energy it takes you to fly out of it. That symmetry is going to make it possible for you to do averaging.
Over a motion event. The sum total of all those adjustments, the entire unfolding of the process.
Wow. It puts a different spin on why he developed it. It wasn't just for solving physics problems initially.
No, his motivation seems more profound. He wanted, as some say, to measure the unfolding of the one, to grasp the dynamics of the interconnected whole he perceived.
Motion theory would see that as.
As a sacred act of sync interpretation, trying to read the rhythms of reality.
So let's try and wrap this.
He was explicitly a God botherer, okay, and a fanatic Christian.
Up. The final verdict on Leibniz through this lens. He didn't quite say everything is motion.
Not in those exact words, no. But he did say, repeatedly, everything is force, everything is activity.
yeah, they all said that. Every physicist should always say that. There's nothing else to talk about except motion and force.
Everything is becoming.
Which is, I mean, that's incredibly close, isn't it?
It's
That's
practically the same
physics.
underlying idea. He wasn't just speculating wildly, he was intuitively, mathematically, philosophically mapping the logic of.
So there's something intuitive about monads and solitons. I don't think so. Religion is intuitive. I don't think so. I don't get how it is to people.
Sync systems.
Okay, so let's quickly recap those key connections we've drawn.
Right. Vis viva.
Becomes loop tension. The drive within the system.
Monad.
A recursive loop agent. A self-processing unit.
Pre-established harmony.
Reframed as global field sync. Coordination
The magical thinking matter.
through a shared background rhythm.
Perception.
Inner rhythm resolution. How a loop relates to the whole.
And calculus.
The math of change. The language of loop dynamics.
Yeah. He genuinely believed the world was composed of these invisible active agents resolving motion in harmony.
And looking through this modern motion theory framework, the conclusion is he was fundamentally right.
In principle, yes. The language is different, the context is different, but the core insight about reality being fundamentally dynamic, active, and synchronized seems remarkably prescient.
It applies from the quantum level up to cosmology, potentially.
That's the implication. these principles of structured synchronized motion could be universal.
So, to leave our listeners,
It's just so silly. So anyway, again, you're just saying, how does this happen to science? Why do they believe this kind of crap? And squaring the velocity, that's all it was for him. It was a tribute to God. It wasn't because the facts said so. It wasn't because levers didn't work. It wasn't because Hooke's law wasn't working. There wasn't anything wrong with the existing physics. It just wasn't godly enough.
with something to think about. Here's a thought.
Go for it.
Consider this perspective. The universe isn't just stuff sitting there. It's dynamic, it's internally active, it's driven by synchronized motion. How might that change how you see, well, everything?
What things around you, things you think of as separate or isolated,
Might actually be connected, might be phase locked, subtly resonating with some underlying universal rhythm, just like Leibniz imagined.
It's a fascinating thought.
No, it isn't. It's just hokey pokey. Yuck. Spin it all around. Oh, it's just disgusting.
From the smallest particle to the largest galaxy, maybe even the rhythms inside your own head, are they all part of this grand synchronized dance?
Something to definitely chew on.
No, it isn't. All right, so let's go see who else they did this to, right? That might be interesting. Let's go back and see if there's a Newton version of this. Shit. Look at all these scientists. There's Edison. There's Tesla. I mean, okay. Here's Newton. So let's see what they did to poor Isaac Newton. There's Descartes too. No, that's Huygens. Okay. Spinoza. Ah, there's Descartes. Okay. Well, Descartes was wooey. I mean, like I said, the ether thing was just such a bad idea. I don't know why he thought empty space was full of ether. But anyway, so let's hit this one. See what kind of disaster this will be. Oh, it's much shorter, I think. You'd think they could have a better. This image is a little 1959. I mean, it's not in color. It's kind of grainy. You're just like, what the fuck? They couldn't do better than that.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well informed. Today we're tackling a giant, Sir Isaac Newton.
Huge figure, mathematical genius, physicist.
Right, and even an alchemist, apparently. He gave us so much foundational stuff, the 3 laws of motion, universal gravitation.
Calculus, optics, and of course the big one, Principia Mathematica. His brilliance is just undeniable, laid the groundwork for classical mechanics.
Absolutely. He gave us the...
So again, they're calling it classical mechanics, and then they're going to call Leibniz classical mechanics. It's just so crazy. I mean, it's a rejection of Newton's mechanics.
language, the equations to describe how everything moves, from, the famous apple falling.
To the planets going around the sun.
Yep.
Right. He talked about gravity being a time-dependent force, as Galileo showed you. Not a distant-dependent force, a time-dependent force. You get the force in units of time.
Yeah.
He observed it all, systematized it like nobody before.
But, and this is where our deep dive really kicks off, there's this kind of paradox, isn't there? Despite giving us all these amazing equations describing how things move, Newton himself admitted quite openly that he didn't know why.
Exactly. He said as much.
He said that about gravity. He didn't say it about everything.
Sources put it nicely. He named the motion but missed its source. He saw the dance steps.
But not the music behind them.
That's a great way to put it. And that's our mission today, really. We're going to unpack this, pretty revolutionary framework called motion theory.
Motion theory, okay.
And the idea is that it offers a kind of profound rewrite of these basic concepts Newton gave us. It tries to translate his surface labels into what it calls deep loop logic.
Deep loop logic. Okay, that sounds deep. What does that mean for us?
This is so 1984. I mean, this is like that's all this double speak bullshit language. Words aren't going to mean anything anymore. I mean, ooh.
For understanding things.
Well, the core idea, maybe picture like this. The universe isn't just like separate objects bumping around.
Right.
Imagine it more as countless interconnected rhythms, like a huge invisible symphony, maybe. Everything's vibrating, cycling, flowing in some pattern.
Okay, I think I can picture that.
And motion
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, yeah. So funny. Well, I can't.
theory tries to help us understand the underlying beats, the melodies that make up reality's music.
So by the end of this, we should have hopefully a more profound grasp on reality, maybe some aha moments.
It's the goal.
Yeah.
We want to go beyond just the what happens and really dig into the why. So yeah, let's unpack this new perspective.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start with Newton's his foundation, the three laws of motion. We all learned these, didn't we?
Back in school, yeah. Seemed pretty straightforward.
This unpacking term, they keep saying unpacking. That's such an AI term. It's on all the Google, answers. Let's unpack. So I guess it's a key phrase for giving, where it's sort of a giveaway. Somebody says unpack, AI.
They do, but motion theory apparently sees them quite differently. So, law number 1, inertia. An object in motion stays in motion unless acted on by an external force, describes momentum.
That's a brilliant observation, no doubt. It works.
Yeah.
But
No, the idea is that motion is something that's a property. You have the property of being in motion. And so you can lose the property, you can give it to something else. It's an exchangeable property. That's the key word, right? It's an exchangeable property. Motion is an exchangeable property. That's what I would change it to. Because inertia, the idea that something resists being moved, it doesn't resist at all. You have to give it the energy. If it's like saying a plant resists growing in the dark. Well, no, it doesn't resist growing in the dark. You have to give it light and it'll grow. Give it no light, it won't grow.
motion theory reframes it. Inertia isn't just motion wanting to keep going.
Okay.
It's actually framed as the resistance to loop phase change.
Loop phase change.
Think of everything as having this inherent rhythm, this structured motion. It wants to maintain that specific.
So they've reversed roles in this video. So the man has the theory and he's explaining it to the woman in this version. Or it was the other way around in the other video.
Rhythm, its phase, unless something disturbs it.
Ah.
Okay, so motion keeps going not because of some abstract want, but because the underlying rhythmic loop resists being rephased by external sink pressure.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That is a big shift. So it's not inertia like a property of the object, but more like the object is a rhythm and it resists changing that rhythm.
You got it, like a spinning top. It has its own rotational rhythm.
Yeah.
And it resists anything trying to change that spin. That resistance is its sink inertia.
That makes a lot more sense, actually. Okay, what about the second law, the famous one, Hefma? Force equals mass times acceleration.
The equation works perfectly, mathematically. But again, Newton never really explained what force or mass fundamentally were. He just labeled them.
Right.
So that's all not true. So again, he did extensively talk about what force was when he was talking about gravity. So it's a different subject than the second law, which is just about motion. And the simple argument is the second law doesn't say F equals at all, and he just basically made the statement. Okay, there was no equation. He made the statement that clearly the force is proportional to the change in your motion. And that simple thing adds up to the force has to be the same thing essentially as momentum. And all you're doing is saying whatever the change in your momentum, that was what you got in terms of force. You got that much momentum. So it's basically saying there's an equality between force and momentum. Certainly an equality between force and velocity when you don't change the mass, which is the same thing as momentum. This is pretty clear.
So how does motion theory translate Fma?
This is where it gets really interesting because it tries to define these terms from inside motion itself. So what we call
Fma, she called it. Does anybody use that term, Fma? F equals ma. So I haven't heard Fma before, so I don't know. So I think that's a misreading of the script by the fake intelligence.
mass becomes sink inertia, which, as we just said, is basically how much a specific motion loop resists changing its fundamental rhythm or phase.
Like your flywheel example. Heavy flywheel, hard to speed up or slow down.
Exactly. That resistance to changing its internal rhythm, that's sync inertia.
Okay, so mass is sync.
So there's no resistance. Just again, it's how you apply the force. Obviously, it takes a lot of force to reverse a lot of force. It takes a lot of friction to get rid of a lot of force.
Inertia. What about the other parts? Acceleration, force.
No, acceleration in motion theory terms is the rate of loop reconfiguration under sync stress.
Loop reconfiguration.
Yeah, imagine dancers trying to switch from one rhythm to a new one. The faster they have to change, the more stress that involves, right?
Okay, got it. And force.
Force isn't some mysterious push or pull from outside. It's external sync gradient pressure. It's the pressure pushing a loop into a new configuration.
Like the choreographer telling the dancers, okay, change beat and now W.
Precisely. That demand, that pressure to synchronize to the new beat, that's analogous to sync gradient pressure.
So FMA literally becomes, let me try. Sync gradient pressure, sync inertia times rate of loop reconfiguration.
You nailed it. The math holds, but suddenly the terms have this deeper meaning tied directly to these rhythmic systems.
That feels,
The math holds. What does that even mean? Clearly, it doesn't hold. Okay, there is no quadratic increase in or any quadratic relationship between velocity and force.
yeah, way more intuitive somehow. It connects how it works mathematically to the why it's happening underneath.
That's the aim, connecting observation to process.
Okay, and the third law. For every action, an equal and opposite reaction. This one always felt very direct.
It does feel intuitive, yeah, because we see it everywhere. Motion theory sees this as Newton's observation of loop sync balancing.
Loop sync balancing.
When different motion loops interact, think billiard balls colliding, the adjustment needed for them to synchronize impacts both systems proportionally.
Ah. So it's not like a magical counterforce just appears.
No, it's described as a natural process of recursive motion rebalancing. The interacting rhythms are trying to...
So all that crap, and basically it's not true, that this equal and opposite reaction thing is ever going to be visible in a lot of cases, because it won't be. I mean, you can do so many, it's like even that silly argument about the morons make about the free momentum. You could have a 3 mass, and a 1 mass, and then you hit the 3 mass with the 1 mass, and the 1 mass bounces back, okay, with 50 percent of the momentum. This goes this way with 150, and you just have a spring here. And so it hits into the spring. Now it's both going to go the same direction. So you'll end up with 2 objects go in the same direction. One with 150% of the momentum and one with 50. So now you started with 100 momentums in, and now you have 200 momentums going the opposite direction for free. And then you could just have those both bounce off of a spring, and then you'd have all the motion going the opposite way. So we know we can change the motion without losing any motion. So it's all just bullshit. Direction doesn't matter, mainly.
line, trying to find a new harmony after the collision.
Okay. The adjustment one makes affects the other to keep the whole interaction balanced, rhythmically speaking.
Exactly. It brings a whole new depth to what seems like a simple law.
It really does. Okay, building on this.
Yeah.
Rhythms dictating motion. Let's talk gravity. Maybe Newton's most iconic achievement.
Mm-hmm.
He described it as a force, gave us the formula, but he famously said, hypotheses non fingo. I frame no hypotheses.
Right. He knew what it did, how strong it was at different distances, but not what it...
So he wasn't going to make any official statement, but obviously in his optics book later, he did do some speculating and basically mocked the idea that it's a nothing. You know, that obviously it has to be something. And obviously that was later when they knew that gravity looked like. Well, it certainly he knew that light had a speed, and so there was every reason to believe gravity had a speed also. So there was lots of things that changed in those 30 years. So in a sense, he did feign hypothesis. He just waited to do so until he had enough information to do so.
Fundamentally was. He really struggled with that action at a distance idea. How could the sun pull the Earth across empty space?
So what's the motion theory take? Where does the pull come from if it's not a pull?
Well, that's just it. In motion theory, gravity isn't a force or a pull at all.
It isn't.
No. It's described as structured motion convergence towards synchronization density.
Whoa.
So isn't this? I'm sure this can't convince anybody. There can't be anybody on this planet who is convinced by this shit. But it's just hilarious. Like, what the fuck is that crap? I mean, who would believe that? It's just such jargon. I mean, it's just, nobody could believe that explanation makes any sense. It's, wooey, Bigfoot, lazy, tard. I could say, I could just put a combination of 5 random words together, and that now is the definition of gravity. I mean, who could fall for that? It's impossible. I just don't know what is the agenda of this crap? Is this being created by, like, the Mormon church or something? I mean, who's doing this? It's really spooky. Yeah, no people here, I guess. Another low volume night, I guess. Let's see. Now we have 4, pretty low. Well, whatever. I can't do much about that. I can't do anything about it, actually. Not a damn thing. All right, continuing.
Okay, but break that down. Synchronization density.
Think of it like a dance floor again. Maybe the music in the center is really strong, really compelling, a very dense beat. All the dancers are drawn towards synchronizing with that central rhythm.
Okay.
The more dancers join in, the denser that synchronized rhythm becomes. Things resolve toward that denser rhythmic equilibrium.
So that R² thing in the gravity formula where it gets weaker the further away you are, that's not just math.
Motion theory says no. That's the natural way sync pressure diffuses across space.
All right, so wait. We know that if it's going to do the R² rule, we know it has to be something like a particle field or something, because that's the only way you can do the square. That's the only way you can have the signal separating in 2 dimensions. The only way you can make that square, is to actually understand that, yes, you have stuff like little bits of paint and they're separating in 2 dimensions. Oh, damn. I mean, you can't play some other... You're not going to have an R² rule unless you're using a mechanism that's stretching in 2 dimensions. And nothing would stretch in 2 dimensions for no reason.
Across the sync field, it just gets weaker further out.
And mass. Why does more massive stuff have stronger gravity?
Because objects with higher sync inertia, remember, that resistance to changing their own rhythm tend to dominate. They pull surrounding, maybe less stable, loops into alignment with their stronger, denser rhythm.
So no invisible force is needed. It's just rhythms naturally...
No force, whether it's invisible or not. So again, it's silly to say no invisible force when we live with, like, infrared radiation, and you can feel it's a force, and it's invisible. That is, you can't see it, but it's a real thing. It's traveling really through the atmosphere. That's what it's doing. The photons are real.
settling towards the most dominant, densest beat available.
That's the concept. Loop phase convergence, not attraction.
Okay, so the apple falling, it wasn't pulled by the Earth. My whole world is tilting slightly right now.
Huh. Well, according to this theory, the apple's internal motion loops resolved into the Earth's much deeper, more dominant motion density. What we see as falling is actually a loop cascading, finding the path of least resistance into a lower frequency, more stable sync zone.
So what does frequency have to do with this crap? I mean, you're just like, what frequency you talk about? Gigahertz, megahertz, megahertz, duzerhertz, what the fuck is that even? Why would a frequency even be something he'd even mention here? I mean, things have to have a frequency. You can't have a frequency for nothing. Oh, too silly.
Newton saw the effect brilliantly, but labeled it force or pull. Motion theory calls it sink alignment pressure.
So my keys falling isn't the earth pulling them, it's their internal rhythms aligning with the floor's rhythm.
That's the idea, aligning with the denser, more stable rhythm below them.
That is, yeah, a huge shift for just looking.
Yeah, and so then why is the earth molten on the inside? Yeah, how's the rhythm do that?
At everyday things. No, Newton, he played around with the idea of an ether, didn't he?
He did, some kind of invisible stuff filling space to carry light, maybe carry gravity.
But
No, he didn't like either one of those.
he couldn't pin it down, couldn't detect it, so he kind of dropped it.
Right. But motion theory suggests he was actually really close to something fundamental there.
Oh.
It basically says space isn't empty. It's a structured motion substrate, like a...
Yeah, no, that's not what he was arguing pretty hard for, an empty space. Yeah, there's stuff separated by empty space. Stuff and then nothing, and then stuff, and then nothing, and then stuff, and then nothing.
a fast vibrating jelly, maybe, or a dynamic fabric woven from tiny potential rhythms.
So a vacuum isn't nothingness.
It's a motion field in a pre-sync state, according to this view. It's waiting for rhythmic information, like light or gravitational effects, to propagate through it. This substrate is what allows things to happen across space.
So he didn't find an ether, but he maybe sensed the underlying sync substrate of reality.
Something like that. An active background, not just an empty stage.
And this ties into time as well, doesn't it? Newton saw this clockwork.
So again, this is all the story is so weird. So the guy Fadio, who was the inventor of Lesage gravity, the first one to propose Lesage gravity, the idea of a particle gravity, Newton liked the theory, signed Fadio's paper. Fadio and Newton corresponded for a few years. Fadio was almost, Newton and Fadio sort of went their separate ways because Newton thought Fadio was too aggressive in defending Newton against Leibniz. That's an ironic part of the history. That in some way Newton blamed Fadio for Leibniz's overreaction. And, because I guess Newton wanted it to all go away in some kind of peaceful way, and he didn't want the hassle of a public dispute.
Universe, absolute time, ticking away everywhere, the same for everyone.
Yes, very much a universal clock. Motion theory completely disagrees there.
How so?
Time isn't seen as an external ticking clock. It's a rate of loop resolution.
Okay.
Time doesn't pass universally. Instead, motion resolves.
Right, so it just blows up the whole theory of photons being real. I mean, the universe is full of all this energy. We know it takes billions of years to get here. We know nothing disrupts that process. It's just idiotic to sit there and say the universe is fluxing in some sort of different, there's some kind of different mechanism, because that is the time teller. The fact that there are photons coming from our side of the universe penetrating that side of the universe, and that side of the universe is the same energy that's penetrating this side of the universe, that interlocks all of the universe to the same time teller, the photon.
That tick isn't external. It's the internal rhythm of any given system compared to another.
So my time, my internal biological clock's rhythm, resolves at a different rate than, say...
So it's not possible for you to have more or less photons travel through you. You can't change how many photons are traveling through you. If you run into them, then you're hitting less or hitting you from behind. So for every extra one you hit in the front, there's less hitting you from behind. So there's always the same number of photons passing through you at any one moment in time, in any one amount of time. There's the same number of photons. 5 seconds, whatever, 10 to the 400th number, whatever the number of photons would be, a huge number. Whatever it's going to be. I'm just saying, 1/1000th of a second, there's, we'll say 1 trillion photons pass through me. It's always going to be that same number. 1,000,000,001, 1,000,000,002, but it's always going to be somewhere pretty close. And that's the time teller. And everything in the universe has the same number of photons traveling through it. I mean, obviously you get closer to a sun or something, you're going to get hit by more photons, but I just mean it's not going to be that many more. because actually those are just reflected photons.
A distant stars.
Or even just compared to a highly accurate atomic clock here on Earth,
Yeah.
it's all relative. Newton's universe had absolute time. Motion theory's universe runs on relative sync resolution.
Right, so there's just no relative time. So relative motion is one thing, relative time is just nonsense. You can't escape the realness of the physical elemental nature of the forces. The forces are physical. It's physics, for fuck's sake, people. Physics. Let's see if we have any. Oh, this green science guy's so full of shit. So we'll see what he says. Let's see. Gravity obeys the inverse square law for distance. Yeah, duh. I said that, fuckhead. Distance is the variable here. So again, it's just more nonsense. It's an inverse square law because as it travels, it's spreading in 2 dimensions. That's the inverse square. Same thing with the photons coming off a light bulb. That has nothing. This argument has nothing to do with distance, and it has nothing to do with your v squared bullshit. All right, the time component is constant, and you could associate with an orbital period or fall time to the center of mass. So you're not talking. You're just talking rubbish. How is this relevant? Explain yourself. The force is getting by a quadratic amount getting weaker with distance, or vice versa. You get getting closer to a light bulb. It's twice the distance, 4 times as many photons are hitting me. How does that have anything to do with this inverse square? Have anything to do with Leibnizian v squared, moron? From the surface of the body, I don't really care about your edits. All right, if you had a model where gravity is driven by photons, yeah, so what's the problem? Maybe the constant time component could be associated with the frequency of the photon. So again, don't need a frequency. Frequency is irrelevant. How is it's the same energy, you dumb fuck. You're still not getting it, okay? Hitting it faster can break something, like an atom. You could hurt it maybe. But the idea is the total amount of energy is absolutely the same. You're talking about 3 baseballs in space. If I put the 3 baseballs really close to each other, yeah, they might knock down a stick. I put the baseballs really far from each other, yeah, the stick just wobbles. Okay, those are truths. But the baseballs themselves can't have more energy. They're just a mass moving a velocity. How they're arranged is another matter of physics. And clearly, to make something a higher frequency, to compress something, requires you to apply pressure. So to create a higher frequency means you have to compress something. So you're going to have to apply a force to make something a higher frequency. So you'll have to use energy to make a higher frequency. But it doesn't absolutely have more energy. You're using the energy to compress it, but the compression doesn't have the energy in it. The compression was lost as heat and reflections, so it's not storing that part of the energy. Anyway, I don't like the screen. He's always trying to make this nonsense rubbish physics not rubbish, and it's rubbish. I don't know how I watched the beginning of this video where I explained Hooke's law, explained the law of the lever, explained how this evil, silly notion is trying to break something that works perfectly. All of this physics works fine. Levers work fine, Hooke's law applied, springs, everything makes perfectly good sense. And it's not until you invent this mv squared to just break everything. Why the fuck would you keep defending this shit?
Time emerges from the interaction of all these different motion rhythms.
This really reframes those basic questions Newton couldn't quite answer, like what is mass? What is force? Why does gravity work the way it does?
So these aren't questions Newton, so again, Newton answered a lot of questions. He didn't ask a lot of questions.
What even is empty space?
Exactly. He described how they behaved mathematically, but didn't define their essence. His genius was in that observation, that systematization. He gave us the how.
But motion theory claims to provide
I
the
mean, so much of this, again, you're arguing that what you're saying, Newton was the guy who actually invented the prediction that there was an invisible form of light called infrared. So Newton discovered that, by using the prism and detecting the temperature, of the rise in temperature. So, he basically predicted that you would have these higher frequencies on both ends of the spectrum, which is a hell of a thing. And so they're pretending that he doesn't have some notion that this stuff is real stuff, traveling from point A to point B. Yeah, he did.
what and the why. Mass is sync resistance. Force is
He called it corpuscles, for fuck's sake. You can't get any more explicit than that.
sync pressure. Gravity is converging towards sync density. Space is unresolved motion potential.
That's the core translation, yes. The why behind the how.
And it's just incredible to think his other massive invention, calculus, was essentially loop math before anyone thought of loops this way, defining motion through instantaneous change derivatives and accumulated change integrals.
It really maps perfectly, doesn't it? Calculus
So
is the
this-
math of synchro.
This instantaneous thing just doesn't make any sense at all. But whatever. Why would you ever need an instantaneous velocity?
Resolution over time. A derivative looks at that tiny instantaneous shift.
Like a loop phase shift right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And integrals sum up those changes.
Tracking the total sync resolution as things change.
He was, completely unknowingly, building the exact mathematical language needed to describe loop behavior.
So the really interesting thing would be is for somebody to actually show somebody doing a calculus problem that actually is resolved into an answer. Yeah, that's what I'd like to see someday.
So his math is totally preserved, just reinterpreted. But the labels he used, force, mass, gravity, as fundamental things, they get replaced.
That's a good summary. He was observing the effects, the symptoms of an underlying system he couldn't fully see.
He wrote the cosmic playlist.
Ah, nice. And motion theory tries to explain the instruments and the musical score itself. Newton wasn't wrong.
He's just early.
Exactly.
All right, Newton wasn't wrong. You just basically pointed out how it didn't fit with your mush. You say that it wasn't wrong. Oh, yes, because you're wrong, and he was right. Oh, that was fastidious.
Perfectly put. Early.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, let's just quickly recap. We've shifted
Deep diving again.
perspective, haven't we? From just describing things like inertia, force, mass, gravity, space, time.
To hopefully starting to understand them as these dynamic loop-based processes. Newton gave us the brilliant how.
And motion theory attempts to give us the why.
And it's really key, I think, to stress that this doesn't throw Newton out. Not at all. It
Yeah.
just puts his work in a new context, maybe a deeper one.
Right. He wasn't wrong. He was just, as we said early, setting things up for this next layer of understanding.
And his calculus, defining that instantaneous and accumulated change, it really was loop math in disguise. Modeling loop behavior without the concept of fundamental loops.
Oh.
The math holds strong.
But the conceptual labels get updated, replaced with these potentially more powerful definitions.
Precisely.
Okay, so here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Phew.
If the universe isn't just this giant clockwork machine run by external forces,
But instead, it's this vast, interconnected symphony of resolving loops and constant sync adjustments.
how does that actually change the way you perceive reality day to day?
Yeah, what could it mean if you start to view everything that falling apple? Sure. But also, just the flow of time itself is this intricate dance. A dance of sync alignment pressure and relative sync resolution.
It's a huge paradigm shift, isn't it? Seeing the universe not as this empty stage for objects.
But as a dynamic, structured motion substrate.
Yeah.
This constant interplay of rhythms, densities, vibrations, something we're maybe only just beginning to really tune into and understand.
Whatever. That was just terrible. Anyway, just too horrible for words. 6 years ago. Wow. I haven't watched that in a while. We didn't have our hair in a ponytail back then. Weird. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, we're going to see if there's even more of this shit, I guess. We'll try one more. Let's see, any suggestion from the audience? Which one should I play? Paul Dirac. Ooh. Ooh, there's Einstein. Ooh, Nutter. Nutter. That's a way oversold pile of mush. Nutter theory. Alright, let's see. Somebody chimed in. What did they say? Pascal. Jeez. Yeah, I'm right on him here. You really think so? I guess so. I don't know much about Pascal, so that might be a good learning occasion for me. So, yeah. Let's try that one. Didn't paint a very good portrait, I have to say. Who is doing this? I'm just so... This is so spooky. Who is doing this? What is the purpose of this propaganda engine this guy has created?
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at someone you might remember from math class.
Oh yeah, he was not a blooker, that's for sure. Eek.
Maybe Blaise Pascal. But not just the triangle guy. Our source material, this really interesting article called "The Mind Who Measured the Pressure of Motion," paints him very differently. It suggests he was deeply fascinated by something invisible but fundamental. Something.
Yeah, that's all I know him from is this, some of this hydraulic stuff, but that's it. I didn't really know whether he had some sort of bigger theory.
Calls motion under pressure. Yeah, so this deep dive, it's really about, peeling back the layers on Pascal. He wasn't just a mathematician, physicist, philosopher, theologian, a real polymath. And we're going to explore how all these different parts of his work, seen through this idea of motion theory from our source, maybe give us a totally fresh look at him. And maybe even how the world works.
Exactly. And to really get this new perspective, we probably need to quickly touch on what this motion theory actually is, according to the source anyway. Basically, it's a framework suggesting...
Okay, from the source. So they're talking about the guy who created he's fakely created his own, his own sodium verte or whatever. This is who I am. I'll have my minions describe the god,
That everything, water flowing, even thoughts, it can all be seen as interconnected motion loops, like basic processes or energies. And sync fields, well, those are described as the invisible pathways, the networks where these loops communicate.
Yeah, the invisible special loop-de-doo that connects all the stuff that's happening. It's just so incredibly silly. It's kind of a pissy and poopy world we live in. It doesn't seem like there's a bunch of looping.
Can influence each other. Think of it like a universal pressure or flow. Our goal today really is to show how Pascal, way before these terms existed, was essentially finding and crucially measuring these motion loops and sync fields.
Right. And the why now is, I think, really compelling. Pascal's methods for actually measuring these invisible things, they give you, our listener, a lens, a way to maybe understand complex systems better. In your work, in your life, we're hoping for some aha moments about how things really connect internally. Okay, let's get into it. So maybe we start with something concrete. Pascal's law, probably no same as physics bit. It says, pressure applied to a confined fluid is transmitted undiminished in all directions. The article points out he showed fluid motion isn't just one way, it's spatially distributed. That itself feels significant.
It really is. And
yeah, what's significant, I think, to understanding electrons, and that, you can't, they automatically communicate with each other. So all the electrons in a system, or whatever the system would be, they all are under a common pressure. So if you increase the pressure on one, it's going to spread to all of them. And that's a big part of understanding this fact that motion has to be absorbed. And that's sort of the inertia argument, that to absorb the energy, you have to absorb motion in all of those electrons, and all those electrons have to be moved because a pushing force moved them. So you have to have enough force that you can spread across all of those electrons and cause movement. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not feeling better. Well, anyways, yeah, I pointed out in the beginning of the video how the last 2 days haven't been very good. So I don't know why it got worse again, but it did. But whatever. You know, I'm surviving it.
Motion theory adds another dimension here. Looking through that lens, our source argues it's not just force pushing. It reveals that when a motion loop, the fluid's own internal movement is contained, right? In a uniform medium, it naturally seeks equilibrium. The fluid spreads its internal communication, its sink field evenly until it hits a wall. It's a kind of preview of how motion talks within matter. Hydraulics, even network theory. It's foreshadowed there.
Okay, so moving from contained fluids to, well, the whole atmosphere. That barometer experiment. Building on Torricelli's work, he wanted to know, basically, does air pressure change the higher you go? And he gets his brother-in-law to climb a mountain, the Puy de Dôme, with this fragile mercury barometer. Can you imagine that request? Hey, Florin, fancy a hike with some toxic metal?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they didn't consider it very toxic back then. I mean, frankly, some of the hype about mercury is just that it's, you know, it's very, there are real circumstances where, you know, you can ingest the vapor, and that's dangerous. So heating mercury and boiling mercury would be really bad ideas. But just playing with mercury probably isn't going to make you nuts. But clearly there's every reason to believe that Newton might have gotten mercury poisoning. And so he was out of commission for a couple of years when he was a bit of a psycho. And, it might have been mercury.
But the result, revolutionary for its time. The higher Perrier went, the lower the mercury column dropped. Lower pressure. Pascal proved the weight of air above us compresses the air below. Seems obvious now, but it wasn't then. Now, connecting this back to motion theory, the atmosphere isn't just sitting there, it's a layered motion field. Each layer exerts sink pressure downwards. So the barometer wasn't just measuring weight, it was detecting a vertical sink gradient. It was showing how the atmosphere's internal motion,
All right, so we know it was just measuring the weight, so that's the big joke here. It is just measuring weight, and obviously it's going higher and higher in the atmosphere. The atmosphere above you is getting lighter and lighter. Just like water pressure. So the lower you go in water, the higher the water pressure. So it's the same idea. So it's exactly weight. And you're just not as deep in the water. So there's not as much water above you. So there's not as much pressure above you. It's that simple.
sink field density changes with altitude. He was sort of touching the invisible hand of structured motion, proving it existed.
Wow. So it's not just weight, it's dynamic structure, this interaction. And the source article really wants to
So it's just weight. Yeah, so there's no way to get around. It's just the number of molecules that are above you decides how high the mercury is going to go. So that's just bullshit. It's all about weight. They're applying a weight to the molecules. That's all they can do is apply their weight to it. They don't have anything else to apply. That's all they can apply is their weight.
redefine pressure itself based on this. What exactly is pressure then in this motion theory view?
Yeah, that's a core point. Motion theory defines pressure as motion resistance due to sink congestion. Think of it maybe like traffic. A crowded highway, lots of cars or motion loops trying to be in the same space creates resistance. Congestion,
Sink
that's high
congestion.
pressure. In a gas, particles move freely. Low sink density, low congestion, so low pressure. But in a liquid, the loops are packed tighter, higher internal sink demand, you could say, so higher pressure. Pascal, without the words for it, was picking up on this sink field behavior.
All right, so that's just more lie that he's picking up on any of that crap. He was just picking up on the fact that it's weight, and gravity makes weight out of everything, even air. Let's see. He contributed theories on fluid dynamics and incompressibility, which led to the invention of hydraulic press. Well, obviously all of that was noticed by other people, that you couldn't compress most liquids. But his nonsense about Pascal's wager shows how brains can go wrong. Yes, well, you can't win them all. Let's see. Hope you worse. Hope better soon. Yes, I likewise hope better soon. Hope better me brain can work so me can do stuff again. Me hope me not going to be this dumb forever. More.
He was showing that this invisible motion stuff, it has weight,
It has force and it follows rules.
And then he shifts gears, doesn't he? From physical stuff like fluids and air to chance, probability theory, working with Fermat, figuring out odds in games, dice, cards. How does something that seems random fit into this motion idea?
Well, the source argues this was another kind of motion insight in disguise. It's quite clever, actually. When you don't know the exact outcome which face the die will show, you can still map its overall behavior, its statistical rhythm. Motion theory elevates this, suggesting a probability distribution is like a projection of sync likelihoods based on unresolved motion systems. So it looks like randomness.
I mean, that's just too stupid. I mean, obviously none of it's random, and the probability is just made out of the fact that there's only 5 sides and they're the same size, you know, that kind of thing. If you can't change, so there's no way you can, well, 6 sides. You can't change anything, so you're stuck with what you got.
This is maybe just sync ambiguity. We can't see the exact motion, the precise interactions causing the outcome, but we can see the patterns they create over time. Pascal wasn't just calculating odds, he was trying to map these hidden motion loops mathematically, tracking the rules behind the apparent chaos.
Okay, that's a fascinating connection. And then there's maybe the...
So they see how they just integrated this motion theory as if it has something to do with Pascal, nothing at all. I mean, there's no demonstrated connection at all.
biggest leap, Pascal's wager. His argument for believing in God. Bet on God, basically, because if you're right, the payoff is infinite. This feels different, very different from barometers and dice.
And if you're wrong, the crime is infinite. Yeah, so it works both ways, right? So if your wager is I'm going to invest in the theory of life being productive, and not being a catastrophe, waste, a loss, a deficit. And that's all that comes down to. And so, yeah, you can say for your personal advantage, it's better for you to believe. But your victims, it won't be better for them. So, I mean, it's just a wrong way to measure something, is to ask whether I can profit. And it doesn't matter who loses. So if I don't have to count any of the losses anybody else experiences except my losses, that's automatically a bullshit wager.
Motion theory connect here too, or is this where it breaks down?
According to the source, no, it connects quite profoundly, actually. It reframes the wager completely. From this motion theory angle, what Pascal was exploring was something like recursive self-alignment under uncertainty. Belief, in this view, isn't just accepting dogma. It's about trying to minimize loop destabilization when faced with big, unresolved questions about existence, the ultimate unresolved motion. Pascal wasn't necessarily making a purely logical proof for God in the way we might think now. He was proposing a strategy for internal coherence. A
way of cheating the truth and feeling good about being a cheater.
Recognized that belief is an ongoing process.
All right, well, we don't really want to do the rest of this, I guess, because it's not really physics anymore. So, we'll go one more. Who will it be this time? Who will we choose? I can't believe how many he's got in here. It's like everybody. Everyone. It's even like goes back to Aristotle. We won't waste time with that, though, because that'll be too ridiculous. I'm tempted to hit Huygens, but I really don't like Huygens much. Spinoza wasn't really a fucking physicist. So, let's see. What do I want? Descartes, do I want to do that? Or, no, let's do Galileo. What the hell? I like him so much better. So they go from Da Vinci to Galileo. That's a pretty big jump.
Welcome to the deep dive. We dig into sources, articles, notes, you name it, and really pull out the core insights for you.
Yeah, distilling it down to what matters.
Exactly. And today we're tackling Galileo Galilei. Now, I think most people, they picture the telescope, maybe the trial.
Right, the classic image.
But our sources today, they paint a different picture. His real genius, maybe, wasn't just what he saw, but how he listened, how he understood the universe's motion.
That's it. He's often framed.
So why does this one say 355? So the other one was 360. Is it three? I don't think there's 300 of these physicists that they've made fun of. I mean, that they've done this to. But that is weird. I have to see what these numbers have to do with them. But anyway. Weird. Very weird. Yeah, they're AI. Like, seriously, it's scary as fuck. You know, that some crazy person has created this whole channel about this whole bullshit theory and somehow got AI to write all this scripting to involve all the physicists in history into some way or other supporting this wooey crap. And I still don't see any comments by any other human being, so at least that's the bright side. Well, here's one. AI shit and slop. AI shit and slop. That's a funny term. Let's see, he says, Mom, is that you? So, yeah, this is all a joke, I guess. This is like some flat earther. You know, they're trying to pull on people's chain and get a reaction, I guess. But this is really weird. I just don't know what his ambition is. What's he trying to do with this shit?
Named as, you know, the father of modern astronomy, which he was, but our sources really highlight him as a kind of motion decoder.
A motion decoder, I like that.
He was uncovering these fundamental truths about how things move that, well, he didn't know it then, but they really laid the groundwork for this conceptual framework we're exploring today called motion theory.
Okay, and we should probably clarify that right up front. Motion theory, this isn't like Newton's laws, is it? It's more a way of seeing things.
Precisely. It's a conceptual lens. It encourages us to view the universe less as a collect
real and mechanical and view it religiously and sillily. Yeah, mushy and nonsensically.
of static objects and more like this dynamic interplay of rhythms, patterns, motion, constantly seeking stability, resolution.
Like seeing the dance, not just the dancers. That makes sense.
Exactly. So our mission today is really to unpack how Galileo shifted thinking by focusing on motion itself, letting it, as the sources say, speak for itself.
And how his discoveries just line up so well with this this modern concept of motion.
Right.
So for you listening, think of this as a shortcut, a way to grasp a really fundamental shift in how we see the universe, get some real aha moments beyond just, you know, history dates.
What?
Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Galileo. We think telescope, but you're saying his big breakthroughs, they started earlier. He was challenging the status quo, the old idea.
Oh, absolutely. Long before the telescope.
Now, you know, the telescope stuff is interesting just because, you know, Newton did the reflecting telescope. So they both did, you know, they both like perfected a telescope. It's just a really interesting idea that Newton found another way to do the telescope that's just fundamentally different. You know, it's just very interesting. And so which one was the bigger invention? You know, it's almost like you gotta give credit to Newton for figuring out that you know, you could make a much more powerful telescope by making mirrors than lenses.
Became his famous tool. He was going up against his whole established hierarchy, mostly Aristotelian ideas that sort of kept motion locked in abstract thought, not real world observation.
And Aristotle's view was things don't move unless you push them, basically.
Pretty much. A state of rest was natural. Motion needed a constant cause. But Galileo...
So motion needed a cause, not a constant cause. So that was the problem with Aristotle. I think they need somebody to keep... Once you have a pusher, you need to somehow keep refueling the pusher, and you don't.
Galileo, he did something different. He decided to let motion do the talking.
How? What does that mean in practice?
Well, he picked things up. He used inclined planes. He watched pendulums swing. And later, yes, the telescope. He wasn't just theorizing. He was experimenting. He was, as our sources put it, listening to structured motion resolve itself through experiment.
So setting up conditions, watching carefully, repeating it.
Exactly. Watching motion under constraint over and over until the loop revealed its pattern. It's this incredibly patient empirical approach. And that, as we'll see, really laid the foundation for this motion theory idea. It's like he was turning into the universe's own frequency.
It's a huge shift from just philosophical debate, isn't it?
Massive. Letting the physical world, the phenomena, guide the understanding. It sounds obvious now, maybe, but it was radical then.
Okay, so speaking of tuning in, his first big insight, the sources say, wasn't the telescope, it was a lamp in a cathedral. That sounds almost too simple.
It does, but it's apparently true. He's watching this lamp swing, probably during a long service.
Yeah.
And he notices something amazing.
What was it?
That no matter how wide the swing arc was or how narrow, the time it took for the lamp to complete one full swing back and forth, it stayed the same.
Yes, he was using his pulse to time it. So it just is surprising that it was just a huge advance in clocks. You know, there was no clocks at Galileo, and then by Newton's time, there was a ton of clocks.
Same. Consistent.
Okay. Isochronism. Equal time.
That's the one. Isochronism, equal time motion loops. And that's a huge aha moment.
Yeah, and for motion theory, that's like a perfect example, a harmonic loop. Motion finding a rhythm under gravity.
Precisely. It's motion resolving across a fixed rhythm because of a...
You know what it is it's again proving momentum, that it's all the same. You know, the mass and velocity is in proportional, and what was my point? Yeah, so the only thing you're changing is you're keeping the masses the same, and all you're changing is the velocity, and the velocity is the distance again. So as the distance is reduced, the velocity is reduced. But the time will be the same. I'm trying to, yeah, but it can't, you know, you lose the energy slowly over time through air resistance, but you could keep it at any distance and it would still function. So I guess that's what they did with clocks and pendulums. They just put a weight on the pendulum so you could move it around, and that would decide how fast it moved back and forth.
Constraint in this case, gravity and the length of the chain. It's all about that predictable repeating pattern.
And he didn't invent the pendulum, obviously.
No. But he felt its rhythm, as one source says. He realized this consistent beat could be used to measure other things, to measure motion by motion.
An internal sync clock.
Kinda, yeah. Using one loop's reliable rhythm to track another's, he's starting to see the universe as these interconnected, measurable rhythms.
So it is sort of interesting. Why did he use a pendulum to measure time when he was measuring, rolling things down the ramp, because that was after. So he would have already known he could have used a pendulum as a timekeeper.
Building the architecture for motion theory without even naming it.
Wow. Okay, so from the lamp's rhythm, he moves to the inclined plane, which is basically a ramp, right? Why was that so important?
Well, gravity is fast, things fall quickly, hard to measure accurately back then.
Oh.
His genius was realizing that rolling a ball down a gentle slope was like watching gravity in slow motion.
Ah, clever. Diluting the effect of gravity.
Exactly.
So you're not diluting it, you're actually magnifying it, in the sense that you're creating so much more gravitational energy. So now the ramp is getting hit by a whole bunch more friction. The ball has more friction. Everything's got more energy in it because you're dragging the whole process out. So the ball's actually getting hit by a lot more gravity, and it has to dissipate all that extra force into the ramp. So that's the ironic part.
Allowed him to take measurements. And by doing that, rolling balls down these planes, he found two massive things.
Which were?
Right, he figured out that it's a time-dependent force, and that's what he made clear. Not a distant-dependent force, a time-dependent force.
First, that falling objects don't just fall at a steady speed, they accelerate. And they accelerate uniformly, consistently.
Okay. And second?
Second, he figured out the relationship. The distance the object covers increases with the square of the time it's been falling. D is proportional to t squared.
Right, the famous equation. And this just completely blew up Aristotle's idea, the whole heavier things fall faster thing.
Completely shattered it. Galileo showed, or at least strongly argued, based on his experiments and thought experiments,
Obviously, heavy things collect more force from the gravity, and when they hit the ground, they will show you that they collected more force. Obviously, because they're going to make a huge impact when they hit the ground, because they collected more force, because they have more mass.
That weight didn't matter. Air resistance might, but fundamentally, gravity affects all objects the same way.
So it's not affecting them all the same way. The thing with the big sail and the big mast, the big boat, is got a lot more energy. So yes, you can make a little boat and a big boat, and you can make them both move the same speed in the wind by making their sail to weight the same. So if I make a little tiny boat with a little tiny sail, and then I make a big boat with a big sail, those two boats will move the same speed in the wind, but one of them, when it hits the wall, is going to crash into the wall and do all kinds of fire, and all kinds of things will happen. And the other boat will have so little energy it'll do nothing. So gravity's not affecting them the same. It's the effect of gravity on them will give them the same velocity, but they're obviously, one of them's collecting a lot more force. If I drop a hammer and a feather, the hammer's collecting a lot of force. It's going to hit the ground really hard with a lot of momentum because it collected a whole bunch of momentum. The feather didn't collect any because the feather doesn't have enough atoms to collect momentum.
In motion theory terms, then, all objects, or all motion loops, they resolve that gravitational pull the same way, by speeding up.
Yeah, by increasing rhythm to stabilize, as the sources frame it. It's a universal principle he was tapping into.
Now, the sources connect this to a different view of gravity in motion theory, not just a pull, but convergence towards denser synchronization zones. Can you unpack that a bit? That sounds pretty abstract.
Oh, that sounds pretty fucking loop-de-doo there. Let's see what he says here. Incidentally, I love how you just fire hose those people, W your exact thoughts, and don't hold back. I don't even know. Fire hose those people with your exact thoughts. I don't know what that means at all. Just more BS lies. What the fuck is this shit? Huh, it's refreshing and deserved. They fire hosed us first. I don't even know what the fire hose part really what that represents, but whatever. Yeah, I'm just here as a human being. So yes, I got on the internet and I was just a person, and I wasn't trying to be somebody else, and I wasn't trying to do anything except explain what my brain was doing. My brain said things, and I was just telling you what my brain had told me. And you can like it or dislike it, but that's all it is. I'm just letting you know what my brain says. I'm controlled by my brain, and I'm just letting you know my brain isn't trying to pretend to be some other kind of brain. I'm just saying, go ahead and do your spiel, brain. I'm giving it free rein. The brain can just say whatever it comes to mind, and it'll say it. And I haven't restricted it and told it it has to do it a certain way. Something like that, anyway. So I guess that's a compliment anyway, so I'll take it as a compliment, right? Yeah. Don't yell at the people on your side, Gary. Okay, I won't do that. This is that my brain was telling me. I shouldn't yell at the people who are on my side.
Abstract.
It is a bit, yeah. Think of it less like a force pulling things down and more like, well...
Yeah, exactly. More like a force pulling, pushing things down. Pushing down. Can't pull down. Can't pull anything. So that's another concept, man. You're just saying all these years arguing this shit, and all these people really think there's such a thing as an, again, the elemental universe there's no elemental pull. Elemental push is so obvious. This bangs into this, it pushed on it. This bangs into this, it pushes on it. I can do it in all kinds of ways where it rotates that and it also goes. I can do all kinds of pushing. What's pull? Pull. I can't make any pulls. There's no elemental pull. Right there, you should be done. Everybody should just say, Galileo should have said it. There's no elemental pull. Let's not even talk about an idea of pull, because we know elemental pull can't happen. So let's just understand everything's got to be some kind of push interpreted. You know, so some kind of push. You know, you're pushing on the back of the doorknob. You're pushing on the rope, you know, in that direction. It's always a push. There is no pull.
Imagine a tightly packed group of dancers moving in perfect sync. That's your denser synchronization zone, like a planet or a star.
Okay.
Objects nearby, which are also in motion, naturally tend to adjust their own rhythm to match the dominant rhythm of that denser zone. They fall into sync.
So falling isn't being pulled, it's like being drawn into the main beat, getting into rhythm.
That's the idea. Especially when undisturbed, they sync up more rapidly. That natural tendency for motion to harmonize, to stabilize, to increase its rhythm as it approaches that sync target, that's the dynamic resolution logic. It's about motion finding its place in the larger rhythmic structure.
Okay. That's a different way to think about it. And then he gets the telescope and turns it upwards.
And boom.
Yeah.
Shatters the old cosmology. The perfect unchanging heavens idea. Gone.
What were the killer observations?
Oh, several. He saw moons orbiting Jupiter. Moons, not orbiting Earth. That was huge proof positive not everything revolved around us.
Right. A direct challenge to the geocentric model.
Definitely. Then he saw mountains and craters on the moon. The moon wasn't a perfect, smooth, celestial sphere like Aristotle said. It was imperfect, rugged, like Earth.
Blurring the line between the terrestrial and the celestial.
Exactly. And then the phases of Venus. Seeing Venus go through phases just like our moon.
That had to be bullshit, right? I mean, obviously you can almost see by looking at the moon it's not a flat surface. Why would somebody think it's a flat surface? It looks all lumpy and bumpy. So that's just funny to me that there was some idea that the moon was some perfect sphere. I mean, bullshit. So yeah, I don't even know why they thought that. That is really dumb. And the whole phases of the moon is, you know, definitely, you know, you have to account for the moon's orbit, and it just seems like, why wouldn't you put it in a circular orbit? It's pretty reliable. I mean, it just seems like they had the foundation and they just took an awful long time to figure out this orbit thing.
That only made sense if Venus orbited the sun, not the Earth. Direct evidence for Copernicus.
So putting it all together, the universe wasn't static, it wasn't perfect.
It was in motion, constantly. And it wasn't divinely perfect in the old sense, but maybe rhythmically evolving, a dynamic system.
And the motion theory angle sees this as nested synchronization loops.
Yeah. Planets orbiting stars, moons orbiting planets, stars moving within galaxies. It's all loops within loops within loops, all orbiting, rotating, resolving tensions on different scales, but all interconnected rhythmically.
So Galileo wasn't just observing, he was syncing up.
He phase locked with celestial motion, is the phrase used. He tuned into those cosmic rhythms, and crucially, he let others see the sync for themselves through his telescope. He showed humanity the cosmic dance.
Incredible. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Inertia. This feels like another huge conceptual leap. Getting rid of the idea of a natural state of rest.
Oh, absolutely fundamental. Aristotle's view dominated for centuries. Things stop unless you keep pushing them. Rest is default.
But Galileo said,
Through brilliant thought experiments, imagining perfectly smooth surfaces with no friction and his real experiments, he basically concluded an object in motion stays in motion at a constant velocity unless something interferes, like friction or air resistance.
Well, that's, you know, Newton's thing too. Well, anyway, so that, yeah, Newton's first law was really Galileo's first law. But anyway, by the way, those can't possibly be perfectly circular asteroid impacts on craters on the moon. Anyway, know why. Well, the moon's limited gravity and the speed at which they impact. So you could argue, you know, that the impact speed could be very variable. You know, so let's just say you have a whole bunch of clutter, you know, like a Saturn's ring. And you got a whole bunch of clutter, and all of that clutter is going to bang into something. You know, that would be very different because that'd be a bunch of low velocity impacts. So they could be very centered. But yeah, the stuff coming from outside an orbit would be moving at a much higher velocity and have just about zero chance of hitting the moon, dead center on its mass. It would be hitting it at some angle. So, you have the answer? Yeah, I don't know. Do you have the answer? But you don't see. I guess it's more. I'm trying to think of Mars. It's got kind of an ugly pattern, but the Moon's got a lot of ugly pattern. You know, it looks like it spread that way. You know what I mean? Something hit and it pushed crap that way. So it does look like a bunch of imperfect collisions. So I don't even know if you're right or wrong about that. Those can't be perfectly circular asteroid impact craters. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't know how much energy it takes and how visual it would be for something uncircular. If you know what I'm saying. I mean, you're not going to get a teardrop kind of shape. Yeah, well, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying I never thought about it, frankly, how many of the craters look like they're at an angle. But I'm just saying now that I think about it, some of them do look kind of non-round. I mean, non-round in the shadow they make. You know what I mean? Like they pushed more stuff in one direction. So there was mountains created in one direction and no mountain in the other direction. So they have that appearance. But I don't know how much craters... It's like that, you know, there's asteroids that, you know, they barely glance the Earth, you know what I mean? They come in and they're so little bent by the atmosphere, and they come in at an angle, and it's almost like they could travel right through the atmosphere and fly out the other end, you know, and not really affect anything. But I have to think about that one. Yeah, okay. What is this? Rary head of electric machining? Never heard of. Oh. Didn't come out quite the same way. Ever heard of electric machining? I don't know what that even means. No, I don't know what electric machining is. Machining? What is it? Maybe I can't read it. No, I don't know what you're asking.
Wow. So the implication is?
Motion isn't temporary. Motion is the default. Rest is just one possibility, maybe even a special case, that just flips everything on its head.
It really does. And motion theory calls this loop momentum.
Right. A rhythm, state of motion, that just continues unless some external sink pressure, some interaction, forces it to change or redirect.
So
A
what
collision.
we call rest.
Is just a temporary sink condition.
Collision.
An object at rest on Earth is just synchronized with the Earth's motion, temporarily stable within that specific rhythmic context. It's not the absence of motion, it's a particular kind of synchronized motion.
Okay, that reframes things completely.
Yeah.
So digging into how he did all this, it wasn't just having good ideas or good eyes, it was his method.
His method was revolutionary. It wasn't just what he saw, but how he observed, how he tested.
He repeated things. Right, changed one thing at a time.
Yes, he repeated experiments, isolated variables, and crucially, he let motion prove itself. He set up these looping trials, as the sources call them.
Looping trial.
Yeah, like each run of rolling a ball down the ramp was a test of the system's rhythm, a sync test. And the outcome, the measurement, was the phase resolution. It showed how the motion reliably resolved itself under those specific constraints.
That sounds exactly like the motion theory description. Create a loop, adjust the tension, observe the rhythm, repeat until the structure stabilizes.
It really is.
Oh, I don't know what the hell that is. That's just such bullshit. But obviously he had to figure out variables like friction and air resistance.
It's like he was performing motion theory in practice centuries before anyone used that label, using motion recursively to understand motion itself.
And that iterative process, that's the core of science now, isn't it?
Absolutely. Building reliable knowledge through repeated controlled observation and testing.
Where's
So, looking at his legacy, obviously huge influence on Newton, classical physics.
Undeniable. Newton built directly on Galileo's work on motion and inertia.
But the sources suggest something deeper than just the formulas, a way of thinking.
Yeah, it's about the questions he asked. He fundamentally shifted the focus. Instead of asking the old question, what causes motion, He started asking, essentially, what does motion do? What does motion want to resolve into?
From cause to resolution.
Exactly. And that's the core question motion theory keeps asking today, right? What's the loop? What's the constraint, the tension? And what's the sync target, the stable rhythm it's trying to achieve?
So summing up Galileo, motion decoder seems pretty spot on.
I think so. He took the mystery out of motion, in a way, showed it wasn't some mystical force, but something understandable, measurable, rhythmic. He removed the old hierarchies from the cosmos.
He listened to pendulums, falling bodies, planets.
He let them speak. And by doing that, he triggered a sync cascade in human thinking, a chain reaction of understanding.
Motion theory doesn't claim he was perfect, but that he was onto the rhythm aspect way early.
Yeah, he was right about rhythm before rhythm had a name. He stopped listening only to ancient philosophers and started listening, really listening, to motion itself. It was always there. It was always motion.
What a mind. Okay, so wrapping up, we've gone from cathedral lamps to Jupiter's moons and seen how Galileo revealed this universe of interconnected rhythms and resolutions.
And that key shift in perspective, not just what causes it, but where is it going? What stable state is it seeking?
Yeah. And that leads to the final thought for you, the listener. We want to leave you with something provocative.
If Galileo taught us to look for these inherent rhythms, these natural resolutions in physics,
Yeah.
how could you maybe apply that mindset elsewhere?
Right, in challenges you face, maybe in work or life, instead of only asking what caused this problem or how do I force a solution.
Maybe
All right, enough of that crap. Okay, so whatever. This guy is still arguing about the asteroids. Let's see. Most are perfectly circular, and there's other oddities that contradict the asteroid impact theory. No, there really isn't. You must be doing this electric universe wacky shit. They all have like the center dimple. They all have indications that that's what it's caused by. Now the question is, again, is velocity. Maybe some of the impacts are not, that high speed because it's cleaning out stuff that's in the solar system. So the impact speed isn't that high. The moon doesn't have a huge gravity. It's not going to pull things in and make them go 1,000,000 miles an hour. So, there's lots of reasons to say, maybe some of these impacts weren't, it wasn't a big giant thing traveling a big giant velocity. Where now all of the impacts are big giant things traveling a giant velocity. I mean, more likely to be things with a high velocity because we've cleaned out all the stuff that was moving slow. I mean, it's obvious you're going to clean out the stuff moving slow because it's going to be slowly but surely collected by the gravitational objects. So anyway, I mean, some of those impacts are really old, It's not like they happened yesterday. They happened a long time ago. All right, anyway, they can't be caused by simple, perfectly round asteroid impacts. Whatever, it's nothing perfectly round. Let's see, there's frequently a smaller, perfectly circular hole within the bigger perfect circle. Well, that should have to show me any of that stuff. I mean, obviously there can be a coincidence, but I doubt that there's any impacts that are perfectly on the same exact spot. Yeah, different size impacts in the same exact spot. But obviously you have that little Martian face thing. There's lots of oddities that happen by coincidence. I sent you a message on your contact. Did you get it? This is Gilbert Jones. I don't know if I got it. You're talking about when you sent today or when? I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember. What was the subject? Do you remember what the subject was? You sent me something about some kind of subject, and I'm supposed to remember what it was. Yeah, I don't see anything in the last couple of days. I remember your name, but I don't know exactly what it was about. So, probably something pisses me off. So that's all people do is piss me off, generally speaking. Alright, so we'll have to wait and see what it's about. Let's see, somebody posted a whole bunch of crap here. What the hell's going on? Let's see, I sent you a message on your contact page. I don't know what that means. All right, electric. Yeah, I must. You know, if I, no, I'm not going to go through all my emails now, but whatever. I don't remember. What the hell was the message? Was it really important? Anyway, electric machining does just this. I'll try to find a video and link it. I think Electric Universe goes over this. Oh, well then forget about it. Yeah, it's nonsense. Yeah, electricity doesn't travel through empty space. Their theory is so idiotic on its face. There's no such thing. You cannot... electricity is electrons. You need a whole bunch of electrons in space, and there isn't a whole bunch of electrons in space. Let's see. Are you perfectly circular? What? HPW. Are they perfectly circular, though? How? I don't know what he's asking. You're over-complicating it, which, no offense, is a bit ironic. LOL. No, it's ever time just about. I don't know what that means. It was about Wikipedia. I don't know what the people... You people really are confusing me. Alright, you sent me a page about the Wikipedia thing that has to do with a bunch of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with physics. So, yeah, I'm not doing it. This is a physics channel video. So, yeah, I'm not doing the other channel stuff here. So, if you want to say something, send me an email. Oh, Jesus. You know, I don't know why people want to make a... it's, you know, the subjects are not about me. The subjects, like even the physics, it's not about me. It's about the physics. What's the truth? I mean, I'm not saying I shouldn't get credit for thinking of something, but I just mean it's not important compared to the actual argument being made. I mean, do springs lose a little bit of energy when they're pushing something? I mean, it's a real point. Does that happen? If it happens, then it should be noted that that's what happens. You know, can the double slit experiment be understood as just creating point sources on the surfaces where the photons are being broken, and that you can send the pieces and the pieces can remake a photon? Does that theory work? Doesn't matter that I said it. I didn't say I believe all electric universe. Well, it doesn't matter how many theories they have. How many theories do they have, the electric universe? I'm just saying, it's just so wrong. You know, it's another pile of, you know, wooey special. We got to make it more interesting than it really is. But I mean, the whole idea that they think, you know, the impact craters are, you know, bolts of lightning is just too ridiculous. Well, what I'm saying is, I don't know some specials. You're talking about what, machining with electricity? Yeah, I know what that is. I mean, I know you can cut metals, okay, with a jet of water now. You can do lots of stuff. I'm supposed to know what the fuck you're talking about? You use some ambiguous terminology and everybody's supposed to know exactly what you're talking about, fuckhead? Now you're just becoming obnoxious. I'm sorry you have the disease of believing the electric universe has anything to do with anything. It's the whole thing was contrived because they want to do this ancient astronaut thing. They're trying to make, you know, people 7,000 years ago had the right idea, and we were living in so much better a life when 7,000 or 10,000 years ago, and we were living in caves. You know, life was so much better then. Oh, blah 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 blah, and you know, and we were living such a romantic and wonderful life, drawing on our walls with our crayons and blah blah. And it's just such baby talk. It's just disgusting. I mean, do you really think Venus crashed into the Earth? I mean, come on. The moon crashed into the Earth, not Venus. You know, Venus and the Earth would not bounce off of each other. That can't happen. Ugh, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I'm not gonna. I don't accept your claim that they're all perfectly circular and any of that crap. So fuck you. Okay, you want to get blocked? I'll just block you. Yeah, I'm not looking for support, frankly. Okay, support that has to come with this crap that I have to accept electric universe propaganda as facts. Now I have to go research this because of your bullshit fucking comment. I have to go look at find the truth. You think it's going to be very hard to find the truth that not all the fucking goddamn craters are circular? But fuck you. You're the one who started this shit. Don't tell me, oh, I agree with what you're saying, except I think the electric universe is right. Well, then you don't agree with me at all. You haven't gotten anything I'm talking about. I'm talking about foundational elemental physics. Both theories can't be right, moron. Shit. Yeah, well, who are you talking to? You didn't ask. You shoved it in this comment section. I read the comment section. I'm probably more likely to read it than anybody else is to read the damn shit. So who the fuck are you talking to except me? And I hate the word dude, okay, you boy? Don't call me dude, boy. I ain't your fucking dude. Fuck you. Fuck off. You're the one duding, fuckhead. Dude. 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 Ugh. God damn it. As soon as somebody dudes you, okay, if you're too stupid and you don't realize you've just been dissed, that's just a way of saying you're beneath me, buddy. Okay, I have to instruct you on reality because you're a dude. Okay, you're too inefficient to get it. I have to be your teacher. Ugh, jackass. Ugh, why do I attempt communication? Yeah, really, it's just no... I mean, really, it's just so silly. Why bring up that crap from the electric universe? I mean, again, he's just going to force me now to go look up. Oh, yeah, all the craters are perfectly round on the moon. Yeah, I'm sure they're not. Alright, anyway, time to get the hell out of here. Shit. Shit. Only 6 viewers. Yeah, it was a little slow tonight. So anyway, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Get the hell out of here.